إنه المهندس هنتر بروفن له عدة برامج، يعني شو اسمه، شارك فيها أو شارك في تطويرها بالتعاون مع الوايسك، منها شو اسمه الخرائط الحرارية، والفيلو جيوغرافر اللي يطلع مسارات الهجرة وولادة التحورات، STR Match Finder، والكليد فايندر الواي كروموزوم او الميوتيشنز، والMT ميوتيشنز التحورات، وايضا الخرائط الحراريه الذكوريه والانثويه، وايضا خارطه التنوع الجيني YDNA Diversity Map.
Okay. Hello, this is Hunter.
Hello, Mr. Hunter. We are glad to have you with us today.
Thank you.
And we welcome you. I would, if you permit me to just introduce you to the audience.
Sure.
And then we can start our session. Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you today with us in our space. الضيف عندنا اليوم المهندس هنتر بروفن، درس هندسة النظم والمعلومات في جامعة فيرجينيا. البكالوريوس حصل عليه عام 2002، وقبل أن يكون مهتم بالYDNA كان يعمل كمهندس برمجيات لتطوير التطبيقات التي تتضمن تقنيات البيانات الجغرافية المكانية وعلوم البيانات. وبعد ما بدأ يهتم بالحمض النووي والبحث في أصوله الأبوية، أصبح من المشاركين في مشروع الJ2 ومدير المشروع الJ2-M241 بين عام 2016 و2019 في الفاميلي تري. قام بتطوير عدة أدوات كتطبيقات تستخدم في تفسير المواقع الجينية ومواقع ولادة التحورات، مثل الPhyloGeographer والSTR Match Finder والY&MT Clade Finder والY&MT Heatmap والYDNA Diversity Map. I just introduced you to the audience. I will say what I mentioned to them in English. Our guest has studied Systems and Information Engineering at the University of Virginia, Bachelor of Science at 2002, and before becoming interested in the YDNA, he has worked as a software engineer developing applications involving geospatial data and data science techniques. After he became interested in his male line ancestors' origins, he became co-admin of the J2 and admin of J2-M241 projects at Family Tree DNA between 2016 and 2019. The tools that he has participated in developing, many in collaboration with the YSEQ, the PhyloGeographer, the STR Match Finder, and Y&MT Clade Finder, Y&MT Heatmap, and YDNA Diversity Map. I don't know if you prefer that we start having questions, or if it's a good idea for you, you introduce each of the applications that we have mentioned, and after you introduce it, we will listen to the audience, and if they have any questions regarding the applications that you have developed. I don't know which way you prefer.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Abdullah, for inviting me, and I'm honored that so many people are interested to hear what I have to say, and that they use these tools. I'm not an expert in J1 and Saudi Arabia or the Arabian Peninsula, because I've learned a little bit about this geography, because some of the lines related to me are from the region. But I'm here because I can explain a little bit if there's questions about how to use my tools. because it doesn't. These tools can be used by anyone to advance their research, no matter where you're from. So we could start with maybe let's start with the PhyloGeographer, because it's the oldest. It's my first tool that I ever made, and I know a lot of people. There's probably a lot of misunderstanding about how reliable something that is computed automatically, how reliable that is. I mean, a migration path. Should I keep talking a little bit, or do you want to translate what I've said?
Yes, I can translate what you've said.
Okay.
المهندس هنتر يقول انه يعني هو ابتدى بعدة برامج، يقول ما عنده يعني معرفة بالمنطقة العربية وتحوراتها وما إلى ذلك، لكن هي أدوات حاسوبية أوتوماتيكية يعني تقوم يعني وتساعد الجميع، وبإمكاني يقول إنه أبدأ بأول البرامج وأقدمها اللي هو الفيلوغرافر، اللي هو يطلع موقع ولادة ومسارات التحورات. Yes, you go on.
Oh, okay. So I can continue?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So it's definitely, as you all are interested in Y-DNA research, it's not obvious how to write software that will always be correct given whatever data we have about where people say their mail line is from. It's not an easy task to create software that does this.
Let me translate. So
sure.
يعني يقول لك هو شو اسمه يعني ما هو بالسهولة بمكان انه عمل برامج يعني لتحديد المواقع الجغرافية للتحورات. ما ادري اذا كان فاتني شيء بس okay, you can continue. Just
okay.
Yeah, every minute, so I can translate enough information.
Yes, because now it's technical, so I give you a chance to.
Okay, go on.
Okay, so yes, so it's there's one other website I know of where somebody wrote an algorithm to calculate migration paths. It uses the family tree DNA tree, and it's called Snip Tracker. And both of these tools should not be considered an absolute truth. It's just our best attempt to create to encode in software rules that we think would make sense, that for them that usually it would compute something that looks like it makes sense.
Yes, thank you. حسب علمه يقول في موجود موقع آخر يقوم بقياس مسارات الهجرة، وهو موقع SNP Tracker. I think it's also called Nevgen, if I'm not wrong.
That Nevgen is a different thing that computes that tells you, that gives a haplogroup prediction based on STRs.
Oh yes, you're right. SNP Tracker غير النفجن فعلا يعني اللي يطلع تحورات وأعمارها. فيها موقع SNP Tracker، والله ناسي اسم الشركة اللي ذا، يقول إنه في النهاية هذه محاولات لترجمة المعلومة الجينية إلى معلومة بالبرامج، بحيث أنها تخمن يعني مسارات الهجرة وولادة التحورات، ويعني هي مجرد تقريب يعني، وليست يعني أداة يعني زي ما تقول يستدل بها بشكل نهائي. طبعا الله أعلم يعني في المستقبل قد تكون أفضل. Yes, you go on, Mr. Hunter.
Okay, so that being said, the tool, I created the tool even though I knew it is a theoretical migration path calculator, and it is to help me when the lineage I'm looking at is maybe geographically diverse, or there's a lot of data, and if I don't already know where I think the origin was, then it can be helpful for me to see what does an objective method calculate, even though I know it's not a guarantee that this is the truth. It's just an attempt from an objective method.
Yes. يقول بأنه هذه الأداة المستخدمة في تحديد المسارات هي أداة نظرية يعني، وليس متيقنا بأنها تعطي المسار الحقيقي، ولكنها وسيلة لترجمة البيانات الموجودة إلى مسار هجرة وولادة تحورات. Yes, you go on.
Okay, and when I created this tool, I did not have. I guess I still have talking on. When I created this tool, I did not have. I did not calculate the number of samples. What do you call it? Sample rate. The sample rate of the different regions. When I wrote the software for PhyloGeographer, I did not take into account the sample rates of the different areas, and this is a major.
Let me translate.
Yeah, sure.
يقول ولما طورت الآلية التطبيق هذا، يقول ما حطيت في الحسبان يعني عدد العينات اللي تخرج من كل منطقة جغرافية. Yes, you go on.
Okay, so because of that, if you have two countries next to each other, for example, Saudi Arabia and Yemen, for example, or Oman, and if one of these countries has a much higher sample rate, then PhyloGeographer it's possible that some of the computed theoretical origins might be more in the direction of Saudi Arabia as a result of a higher sample rate.
Yes. ولذلك يعني بسبب انه ما اعطى يعني بعد للدول، يعني فالدولة اللي يطلع منها عينات اكثر قد يعطي على أن يعني هذه موقع أو ولادة هذه التحورات، مثل الحالة بين السعودية واليمن وعمان. Yes, you go on.
Okay, and now it's a good time. Now I can mention the mapping, the frequency mapping, Heatmap, and mtDNA Heatmap, and the diversity map. These tools take the sample rate into account. So these are more reliable. The information you see and the relative frequency and the diversity heat maps, these are actual computations, or what I mean is it's not trying to predict something. It's just showing you an absolute calculated quantity. Like frequency is frequency. Relative frequency is relative frequency. Diversity, it could be defined different ways. I've defined it in my documentation. Yes. People can read it.
So you're implying the heat maps for the diversity, and for the other one, what's is it called?
Oh, mtDNA heat map.
mtDNA heat map, yes. بالنسبة للخرائط الحرارية فهي خرائط يعني أكثر دقة، وسواء خارطة التنوع الجيني أو بالنسبة للذكوري أو للإناث، وهو معرفها يعني بعدة طرق يعني موجودة عنده في الوثائق اللي وثق من خلالها البرامج هذه، وهي تمثل بيانات حقيقية فعلية يعني. بينما مسارات الهجرة زي ما ذكرنا سابقا يعني فيه موقع ولادة تحور، وبعدين هو يربطه بخط نظري يعني قد يصح وقد لا يصح، بينما في الخرائط الحرارية لا، يعطي لك الحاجة مثل ما هي موجودة على أرض الواقع. Yes, you can go on.
Okay, so for advice, if somebody looked at where PhyloGeographer computed the origin of a haplogroup. First, they should keep in mind this should not be considered exactly that point that is shown is implied that's the origin. Rather, this is an approximate location that is just theoretically may be the origin. And somebody should also look at the frequency heat map and especially diversity heat map for that same haplogroup. If the highest diversity is not in that location, then it might not be correct. It's less likely to be correct if the highest diversity is somewhere else.
Could you please repeat the last point? I didn't get it.
Yes. If you look up a subclade on PhyloGeographer and it shows one location as the origin. If you look up same haplogroup on diversity map, if it's a different place, I think that the origin is more likely to be where diversity map shows the origin.
Yes, thank you. Let me translate that.
Yes.
المهندس هنتر يقول يعني كنصيحة يعني يستخدمون هذه البرامج يعني لتحديد ولادة التحورات ومساراتها، يجب أن يضعوا في الحسبان بأن هذه المواقع ليست دقيقة، يعني هي مجرد أدوات للتقريب يعني وليست دقيقة. وأيضا بالنسبة للخارطة الحرارية، يعني عندما يعطي مثلا موقع لأنه محتمل أن يكون ولادة تحور معين وتذهب إلى خارطة التنوع الجيني وتجد أنه في موقع آخر، فخارطة التنوع الجيني هي أكثر دقة في تحديد ولادة التحور، طبعا كتخمين أيضا وليست كموقع يعني نهائي. Yes, you can go on.
Okay, and I think all of these tools can be useful because even though so PhyloGeographer, the origin that it computes for a subclade, even if this is not always highly reliable as where it really originated, there is a way for you to view all of the samples downstream of that branch using it's called crossing paths view on PhyloGeographer. There's two different viewing modes. One is a migration path mode, and then the other one is called crossing paths. And if you view a subclade with the crossing paths mode, then it shows you all of the branches below that subclade. This is useful because then you can look at it and you can decide what you think makes the most sense because you see all of the downstream samples on the same map.
Yes. هنا يقول أنه بالرغم من أنه يعني نتفق بأنه يعني المواقع التي يتم تحديدها ليست دقيقة بشكل كافي، ولكن بالإمكان الاستفادة منها من خلال يعني دراسة المواقع التقريبية اللي خرجت عليها وتقاطعها مع المسارات التحورات الأخرى اللي يعني قريبة منها اللي تعلوها وتدنوها، ومحاولة يعني فهم ذلك. ويوجد مود في الخرائط الحرارية لقراءة البيانات المتقاطعة. أنا صراحة ما قد استخدمته، بس خلنا بسأل وأتأكد منه. Excuse me, you mentioned that there is a mode or there is a way to implement in the software to check the crossing paths for the mutations or for the Hubble groups.
Yes.
Is it available in the software, or how can we reach it?
Yes. If you go to if you already know how to view the migration path using PhyloGeographer, then the page that is loaded that shows you the migration path, it has like two different tabs. Maybe later I can send a screenshot that would show this.
Yes, thank you. يقول هذه موجودة في البرنامج فيه هذا، ويقول بيحاول يرسل لها سكرين لقطة للشاشة بحيث إنه يعني نطلع عليها. Yes, proceed, Mr. Hunter.
Oh, okay. Now I'm looking at my page now, and when you go to the page where you can type in the snip called the page is called snip lookup. After you type in the snip, a page loads that shows the migration path, and there are two tabs. One tab, the active tab, is called My Ancestors Path, and there is a tab to the left called Crossing Paths. So, but later it would be easier if I showed a screenshot, and I will get that to you afterward.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
في الصفحة نفسها حقت تتبع مسارات الهجرة يوجد تدخل للتحور وتضغط عليها، وفي خيار ثاني للمسارات التي تتقاطع وبيوضح عنها لاحقا. يقول تفضل. Yes, go on, Mr. Hunter.
Okay, yeah, I can explain it easily. On the page, there are two different viewing modes. One of them is used by default, and if you just click somewhere on the page, it will show a different type of viewing mode that will show everything downstream.
Yes, thank you. يقول في طريقتين للعرض موجودة ضمن البرنامج. إذا اخترت الأولى اللي تطلع لك اللي أغلب الناس يشوفونه. إذا اخترت الطريقة الثانية تبين التفاصيل اللي ذكرها. Yes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. And okay, I think now before I talk about some of the other tools, it could be a good time that people can ask questions about, because I already mentioned a couple of different tools like PhyloGeographer and the heat maps.
Yes. You will talk about. You can talk about them now or later, you said.
Okay. So I can talk about the way Heatmap, the way the Heatmap works. Each sample from Weifel tree is mapped to a location that is the center of the region that the code that represents the code. And yeah, you can say
you're now talking about which application you said?
Now I'm talking about Heatmap.
Heatmap, the YDNA Heatmap.
Yes, YDNA Heatmap, and the MTDNA Heatmap uses the same methodology.
Yes. يقول المهندس هنتر إنه لما تدخل على الخارطة الحرارية المتعلقة بالسلالة الذكورية، في الخانة الخاصة بإدخال التحورات تضع التحور فيها وتطلع المواقع الخاصة بذلك. Yes, I mentioned to them that you use the space that or the field in which you put the mutation, and after you execute it, you will get the heat map that represents that mutation.
Yes, and if someone says that they are from a province of Saudi Arabia called Asir, then my system uses one position that is about the center, around the center of Asir province, and my map, depending on how big the province is, the radius will extend further or less. If someone says I'm from Saudi Arabia, but they don't say where, then this sample is given a bigger radius, but it has less weight for the computation.
Yes, I have a question. I don't know if you have the Weifel samples. Do they all are they all encompassed in your software?
Yes.
Yes, thank you. هو يقول الحين إنه بالنسبة للعينات اللي يطلع من خلال الخرائط الحرارية تعتمد على بيانات الوايفل. ففي الوايفل زي ما أنتم عارفين يعني تدخل الاسم ورقم العينة وإلى آخره، وتذكر في نفس الوقت اسم البلد واسم المنطقة. طبعا إذا المنطقة زي ما ذكر منطقة عسير، اعتمادا على حجم المنطقة كبرها أو صغرها، فهو يختار المركز في المنطقة وتوضع العينات فيه. فلذلك يعني حسب كبر المنطقة يعني تكون يعني ودقة الموقع معتمد على موقع المنطقة هذه اللي تم اختيارها. I remember that I have sent you questions maybe a year ago regarding putting, and I mentioned that some provinces in the kingdom might be maybe the size of France or Spain.
Yes.
And the center for them might not be that meaningful when we use it. So, and later I noticed that you have added a software change in which we put, the coordinates. But as you know, most people don't know how to use the coordinates and enter them. I don't know if in the future will be possible, because like in the family tree, there is you can choose in the map that they have the city from which comes the sample, and that's more user-friendly. I don't know if this is possible in the future or not.
Yes, this is a good question, and I was going to mention it. I have right now I only have access to the public regional code of the samples on YFL. But if YFL gives me access to the exact location that you enter on the YFL system, then I can easily use that instead. And then the maps will be more accurate and the migration paths will be more accurate. But I don't have that. But in the future, if you can talk to YFL and suggest that it would be good, and then maybe they will give me that access. But I don't have that at the moment.
Okay, because the YFL don't have this field for the city. They have only the province and the country. So they have to change their software first before we can have it into the data, and you can utilize it later.
Right, but they do allow you to enter an exact latitude longitude by clicking on a map, but it's just not publicly visible.
Yes, I have tried it, but I tried it from my iPhone and it never worked. I don't know, maybe the iPhone is maybe not equipped to do that. Maybe you have to have a PC or something.
I had a problem trying to do it one time also, but I think in the meantime, I think it does work now. But maybe it's not good to use the iPhone. But the only issue, they could easily make it available to me if they decided it was a priority, and if they decided that that it's not a privacy issue. So it's if you could tell them that you would appreciate it for your research if I was given this access, and then from my end it would be very little amount of work, and I'm happy to do it because it would increase the resolution of my maps by so much.
Yes, certainly. Yes, sure. I will try to ask them to to add it, and ask our friends here in the space to do the same. أنا كان سؤالي للمهندس هنتر بخصوص يعني إنه الموقع غير دقيق، وإنه لو أدخلت المدينة مثل ما هو موجود في الفاميلي تري، قال إنه هو ما عنده يعني دخول على هذا في الوايفل. فطبعا بينت له إنه في الوايفل أيضا ما هي مذكورة، هذا موجود فقط إنه يحطون الإحداثيات. إذا تقدر تدخل الإحداثيات تأخذها من الجوجل ماب، تختار الإحداثيات الخاصة بالمدينة اللي أنت منها، أو يعني اللي أصغر من المنطقة أو المحافظة، ويتم إدخالها. أنا حاولت حقيقة بنفسي على الجهاز الآيفون وما ضبطت معي. يمكن إنه اللي يستخدم بي سي ولا جهاز أكبر يعني يمكن يكون قادر على ذلك. فيقول لي إذا في إمكانية أنكم أنتم كمستخدمين للوايفل أنكم تراسلون الشركة بحيث أنها تضيف اسم المدينة إذا كان ما في هذا تعارض مع يعني النواحي سرية المعلومات. طبعا ما أعتقد فيها أي مشكلة، لأنه الوايفل تحط الدولة والمحافظة. ويقول بعد ذلك التعديل بيكون يعني على مستوى البرنامج يعني تعديل بسيط جدا، يعني ما راح يشكل أي مشكلة. Yes, you can go on.
Okay. I just want to also mention that when I created the mtDNA heat map a few months ago, I wrote my own software for showing the colors on the map. And this new software that I wrote enables it is more accurate. It is more accurate than the old Heatmap. But so really right now there are two versions of Heatmap that that you can look at. One is the original classic. I think we're going to call it classic. And the other Heatmap, I call it Heatmap Alpha because I had to give a different name, but it uses the same software that I created myself for mtDNA heatmap. And if you look, it's the gradient is more precisely computed than in the classic heatmap.
Yes, I looked at it. The one that has a radius in miles, I think, or kilometers, right?
Yeah, and you can choose 3 different settings. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I tried it, but I don't know, it didn't work. I tried to enter the SNB and it just stalled. It didn't execute the command. I don't know if it's an iPhone issue or a general issue.
Was this in the last few days or was it a while ago?
Yeah, the last few days and just an hour ago.
Okay, well, right now we have a problem with a different problem, that the map just doesn't work because the computer that has the map, the map server is not working, and we're trying to fix that. So it's right now the problem is unrelated to my software, but it's the map server is not working right now.
The GIS system that is not responding, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That brings the tiles. Yes. But there are this new Heatmap that I made, the new version. It is a little bit slower, and it takes some time for your browser to load some kind of big files. It could take a few seconds. Might not work on the phone very well, although some people told me that it works.
Yes. بالنسبة للخرائط الحرارية يقول يعني طور الحين القديمة بالإمكان تسميتها الكلاسيكية أو التقليدية، وطور واحدة أكثر دقة يقول، بس إنه أنا دخلت عليها قبل كم يوم ودخلت اليوم وما تشتغل. يقول المشكلة ما هو في البرنامج، المشكلة في النظام الجغرافي اللي مستخدم في إخراج البيانات. يقول له يعطي دقة أكثر في شو اسمه في المربعات، ومشكلته إنه يعني وقت الاستجابة يطول أكثر، والبعض يعطى له ملاحظة إنه قد لا يعمل على الأجهزة المحمولة. يقول بس هو في ناس ثانيين قالوا له إنه فعلا اشتغل، ولكن إن شاء الله يعني في الفترة القادمة يعني تنحل مشكلته يعني، ولكنه أبطأ من النظام من الكلاسيك أو القديم. Yes, you go on.
Okay. And since you gave me that feedback about treating the different regions with more resolution, I changed the sensitivity. When Heatmap was my first version of Heatmap, any region less than 40,000 square kilometers was treated with the same radius. So 40,000 square kilometers, any region that size or smaller was given the same minimum radius. Now I've changed it that 10,000 square kilometers is the most high resolution area.
So that's in the grids, you mean in the map?
Yes, on the heat maps.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
يقول بناء على الملاحظة اللي جاته سابقا، كان أول المربعات كانت تمثل كل مربع يعني كحد أدنى 40,000 كيلومتر مربع. الآن يعني نزلها إلى 10,000 كيلومتر مربع، بحيث أنه يعني تكون البيانات لكل 10,000 كيلومتر مربع بدل 40,000 كيلومتر مربع يعني، وهذا 4 أضعاف الحجم السابق. Yes, you go on, Mr. Hunter.
Okay, I think that's enough of me explaining the heat map. Well, I guess I can describe a little bit about the diversity heat map of how it works. So the diversity heat map, it confuses a lot of people because they say, well, what does diversity mean? And in haplogroup research, when we say diversity, we mean that among the oldest branching points, a region is present. The more of the older branching points are found in a specific region, then we say that region is diverse. So it's diverse among the oldest branching points.
Yes, هو بيتكلم الحين يقول عن الخارطة الحرارية للتنوع الجيني. يقول لك إذا كانت مرتبطة هذه المنطقة بعناصر أقدم على أو عليا من هذا التحور، فيعني تعطى إنه يعني على إنه هذا الموقع اللي يعني أقرب لوصف يعني ولادة التحورات أو موقعها. Could you just elaborate a little bit if you get you know more or older SNBs in that area, the indication exactly is what?
So I'll give an example. If a branch has 3 children branches, and 2 of the children branches have many sons and sons and sons and sons and lots of branches, and then the 3rd child branch only has 3 guys, those 3 samples that are in that 3rd child branch, they are given the same weight as all of the sons from the 1st branch and all of the sons from the 2nd branch. Each branch is given the same weight, each child from the original father.
You mean they are given the same weight in order to show the density of the branches in the area, right?
Yes. So if there were, so each one, let's say that there were 3 children. The 3rd branch has 3 children. Each of those children would be given more weight than the children of the more numerous, more prolific brothers.
So the younger ones will be given higher weight, right?
It's not necessarily, they're not younger. That's just a branch that has less people in it.
Yes. And and this will reflect on the map that in this area it would look in the diversity as denser than other areas in which they have less branches, right?
Yes. So a good example, here's an easier example to explain is if there's just 2 child branches, if there are 2 child branches and one of those branches has 2 samples both from Palestine and the other branch has 100 samples and they are all from Lebanon, then those 100 samples really just count the same as those 2 samples because they're both below brothers. They're both below just one guy.
Yes, I got it. هو الحين بالنسبة للدايفرسيتي ما ذكر بأنه يعني أحيانا قد يأتي عينات أكثر من منطقة معينة ومنطقة أخرى
I can't hear you.
في
I can hear you. Okay.
يس ومنطقة أخرى يعني أتى منها عدد أقل يعني من العينات بس على نفس المستوى، فأصبح وزنهم يعني لو عينتين هو ذكر من فلسطين قد يكون وزنهم زي 100 عينة من لبنان يعني. فيعني من خلال قياس موقعهم الجيني ونسبته إلى الآخرين، فإذا كانوا يعني في نفس الموقع تقريبا ولكنهم فروع مختلفة، فوزن العينتين زي 100 عينة زي وزن العينتين. Yes.
Thank you, Ustaz Abdullah. Just I have a question.
Okay.
Hunter, I have just a question about the technique for branching, because there is too much confusion about that. When there is a branch that's well tested and it has too many branches, and then there is another one not tested much, you will see that one will be on the top of the haplogroup, and then people confuse. They think that's where the origin of this whole tree coming. Is that true, or because just is not tested enough, that's why this sample on the top? If I
okay, so it's a good question. There is I've seen that there is a common misconception that just because one basal sample is from someplace that must mean that's where the origin is. We should take into account it's not reliable unless there are a few samples from the same place that are also very distantly related to each other. If it's just one sample, then it's not that reliable, even if it's very distantly related, because we don't know how long he's been there.
اوكي ثانك يو. ممكن اترجم. السلام عليكم. شكرا استاذ. سالت السؤال على اساس انه اذا في عينه في فرعين، فرع فوق اختبر بدرجه كافيه جميع الفروع اللي فيه، وفي اخر لم يختبر، هذا الفرع الذي لم يختبر حيكون دائما في الاعلى. هل هذا الكلام صحيح؟ لانه اغلب الناس لما يشوفوا هذا الفرع الذي موجود في الاعلى يقول لك هذا هو اصل هذا الفرع. يشوفوا لك عينه من رومانيا ولا عينه من كينيا ولا عينه من اليمن، يقول لك هذا الفرع اصله يماني او كيني او روماني. فهل هذا الحقيقه صحيحه؟ هو ذكر قال هذا السؤال جيد، لكن هذا خطأ يقع فيه كثير من الناس. كل الحكايه انه هذا الفرع بس لم يختبر اكثر.
I can give a very short example that helps to explain this. We have a lineage in J2B that has been in India or South Asia since Neolithic time, and some of these branches only have two people. Some of these branches only have two people in them on Y-fold tree from scientific study, but these branches are 6,000 years old, 7,000 years old, and both people are from Pakistan or India. And in this case, even though it's not so many people, because these areas are not sampled very much, and they're very distantly related to each other, and they're both from almost the same place. In this case, it's good evidence that this is the origin, even though it's not so many samples.
You mean here the ancient DNA, the ancient DNA when it exists, you can take that?
Yeah, that's the best. That's the best. If there is no ancient DNA, then what is reliable is if you have a branch that their TMRCA is older, if you have a branch that has a very old TMRCA and consistent geography, then that's the next best thing if you don't have ancient samples.
ممكن اترجم برضه، اترجم لك عبد الله اساعدك شويه. هو تحدث عن انه في عينتين في J2B والاثنين قدام، يعني عمرهم زي 6000 سنه في منطقه باكستان والهند. فقال في هذه الحالة ممكن تعتبر موقع هذا التحور هذه المنطقة، لأنه قديم رغم أنه لا توجد عينات كافية، لأنه هنا يوجد ancient DNA أو يوجد رفاع أو يوجد حاجة قديمة ممكن نرجع لها، مش عينة مفحوصة حديثا والناس تقول لك هذا هو المنشأ بتاع هذا الحمض. إذا لم يوجد حمض قديم من رفاع من مملكة قديمة من شيء كهذا لا تستطيع أن تجزم، إنما يكون هو عبارة عن احتمالية قابلة للصواب أو الخطأ. شكرا.
جزاك الله خير. أبو إبراهيم تفضل، وبعدين الأخ مذكر. تفضل أبو إبراهيم.
الله يعطيكم العافية. معليش أنا ما نبغى نسقط على الأخ مذكر، بس هو في نفس السياق الذي ذكره الأخ بدران. أنا وجهة نظري يعني مثل ما ذكر اللي هو الخبير اللي هو الأستاذ هنتر، بأنه هنالك عينات بالفعل نجد لها تكتلات في منطقة ما لا تتجاوز 300 400 500 سنة أو 1000 سنة بالكثير، ثم تتوقف وهنالك فراغ كبير، ثم يكون التحور الأعلى لها في حدود 10,000 سنة أو زيادة أو يزيد أو ينقص. هذه العينات يخطئ الكثير في جعل التحور العلوي هذا بأن يجعله منشأ لهذه القلة التي وجدت لسبب ما، لسبب أو لآخر. فقد يكون كيف قبل 300 400 سنة هاجر أسلافهم إلى هذه المنطقة ويوجد فراغ من فوقهم، ولا يعني طبعا ما في هنالك اتصال بتحورات فوقهم متصلة ومتسلسلة حتى تصل ل10,000 سنة. لا، هم اللي أعرفه أنا أنهم هم يرصدوا التحورات الخاصة بهؤلاء وبتكتلهم الخاص فيهم 300 400 500 سنة 1000 سنة، ثم بعد ذلك يجدوا أو يبحثوا عن التحور الموجبين له. طيب، فيجعلوه سقف لهذه سقف عمري حتى يظهر تحورات بينية بينهم فتفصل بينهم. هذا الخطأ يقع فيه كثير بجعل كيف التحور العلوي منشأ للي لهم 400 500 سنة في هذه المنطقة وهم طارئين على هذه المنطقة. أرجو أن يؤكد كلامي أو ينفي اللي هو الدكتور هنتر.
يا أستاذ بدران ترجم له. ها.
Yes, I can say that. This is a question, Mr. Hunter, from Abu Ibrahim. I just give introduction about Abu Ibrahim. He's considered like the godfather of genetics in this area. He's well known and he's a very good person, has a knowledge in DNA. And just his question is asking about the same we're just talking about. He said sometimes there is a couple of samples and then those couple of samples for people, they just move in that area in the last 400 years or 300 years or 500 years. And then people think that the origin of this DNA, but in Arabia, you will find people, tribes, like living in that area for thousands of years, but they are not tested yet. And then when there is new people tested, people think, oh, now that this area is belong to those people, and that create lots of controversy and now too much discussion about this. If you see, we will have daily around 4 or 5 rooms with different haplogroups and people discussing and stuff. Most of it, there is some knowledge there, but most of it is not built on science. So that we just want from you what's a good way of determining the origin, like besides the ancient DNA, to just confirm.
I think the only general thing I could say is that if everyone in the discussion can accept that they might not, even through discussion and even through analysis, they might not get the exact answer, and they might need to accept for the time being that a certain range is possible, and anything within that time range just cannot be excluded yet based on the evidence.
ثانك يو. هو قال طبعا نحن حنتعامل مع الحقائق ما دام في عينات مفحوصه، يعني بتاخذ الحقائق من هذه العينات المفحوصه الى ان يظهر شيء جديد، يعني ممكن تكون فتره انتقاليه الى ان تظهر الحقائق كامله. فلذلك الحكمه في هذا العلم ده مني انا الزياده دي انه الانتظار، يعني الناس تنتظر لحد ما تكتمل النتائج ولا تبني على شيء حديث يعني. شكرا.
I can give a little more practical advice that if then they can focus on, once that is accepted, focus on directing your research to obtaining the information that would confirm or reject various theories. So that might involve testing regions that aren't tested yet, or try to find someone who could split a bottleneck, and then you might have smaller ranges of possibility.
هو هنا بينصح بيقول يعني اعتقد انها غالبا تكون لمدراء المشاريع، لانه بيكون عندنا الامكانيه لفحص عينات اخرى، انهم دائما يحاولوا يعملوا بحوث عن الروايات الاخرى الموجوده عن اصل مثلا هذه القبيله او اصل هذه المنطقه، بحيث انه يقدروا يفحصوا يا اكدوا كلام هذا يا نفوه، بفهم انهم يعملوا بحوث على كل روايه موجوده. لانه انا غالبا الان بتجد الناس بياتوا بروايه يقول لك ابن الكلب قال وغيره قال، فبتكون في عده روايات، فانت لازم تفحص عشان يا تنفي يا تثبت هذه الروايه. اذا انا ترجمت صح. شكرا.
جزاك الله خير مهندس بدران. الاخ مذكر، تفضل مهندس مذكر.
الله يسلمك.
We have a similar kind of problem with in Europe. In Europe, my haplogroup and from Southern Europe and Balkans, during the time of the Romans, they got moved everywhere, and so we just have to accept any branch that is only 2,000 years old. It's not like it may not be indicative of the deeper origin, and makes our job very hard. But we have to look for Iron Age. We look for branches that are as old as the Iron Age, because that's before the Romans moved people around. And we hope that we find a branch that's as old as the Iron Age and where everyone stayed in the same place. And then that's how we make progress for my mail line.
هنا تحدث قبل ارجع للباشمهندس مسكر. هو تحدث هنا قال انه هو الخط الجيني اللي منه هو من منطقة البلغان، وهذه المنطقة الرومان قبل 2000 عام طبعا بحكم انهم حكمهم للمنطقة كانوا بيطردوا الناس من المناطق ويضعوا بعض الناس في مناطق أخرى، فلا يقدر يجزموا بأصل الناس من هذه المنطقة إلا إذا وجدوا فرع عمره أكثر من 2000 عام، لأنه يدلك على أن هؤلاء في تلك الفترة هؤلاء الناس كانوا موجودين أو أصيلين في المنطقة، لازم يبحثوا عن 2000 عام. إذا وجدوا عينات أقل من 2000 عام ما يعتبروها هي اللي بتمثل هذه المنطقة. شكرا. باشمهندس مسكر ممكن تتفضل.
الله يزيد فضلك يا بدران. السلام عليكم، أسعد الله مساءكم جميعا.
وعليكم السلام. حياك الله مهندس مذكر.
الله يطول عمرك يا محمد. Mr. Hunter, how are you doing? I just have one question.
Good, thank you.
Regarding the architecture mechanism for the heating map thing, do you do any APIs between the platform that you are using with the YFOL, or you do that manually by taking samples, or you take the haplogroups and apply it to the heating map? What's the architecture for your solution, please?
I get the samples from the website. It's from the YFOL website. From the public tree pages.
So
And
sorry to interrupt you. So you do not have any integrations between your platform and YFOL, for example. You take the samples and then you apply it to the heating map, and then you get the final results, right?
Right. I have some collaboration with YFOL, but the data that I need from them, I just take it directly from the web. And that's all I need for them for that particular application, for the heat map. And then I have my own locations where I have a table where I say this geographic code means this latitude, longitude. And that's just my own software.
باشمهندس مسكر ترجم السؤال لو سمحت للجمع الكريم.
Sure. But let's finalize this. So basically, you are taking, let's say, samples from the YFOL. You take it, let's say, with very long ages, and you apply it to the heating map, and then you get the final results. What we are having, let's say, disagreements between, lots of people on the Arab world is between the haplogroup, where is the origins of this X haplogroup, for example, is just 1 second, please. Again, sorry. So the confusion is coming because of the origin of the haplogroup itself.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was your question? Please repeat the last part.
Sorry, I have one of my kids is knocking the door. Just 1 second.
Well, he's addressing the data migration, right?
So I think he's asking about the heat maps.
Sorry, guys, Hunter. So you are taking, like random samples, for example, and then you take these samples and you apply it to the heating map, and then you get let's say the dots on the map itself. Yeah, correct. For example,
they come from the YFOL samples.
Exactly. So, but in the YFOL samples, you get thousands of samples there. Yeah, correct. So what's it's huge database. We are saying a huge database there. So do you pick based on the age of that X sample, for example, or you just select that randomly, let's say, yeah?
Well, so the frequency heat map, the frequency heat map, which is the original heat map, Y heat map, and then the newer one that I call Y heat map alpha. This application does not care about the age of the haplogroup or the age of the ancient sample. Instead, it's just every single geographic code that is in the YFOL tree is a different data point. One moment, my wife's calling. It didn't work. Okay, so every sample is just another data point, and the way that the relative frequency is calculated is all of the samples in the YFOL tree, no matter what haplogroup, are used to compute the overall sample rate, regardless of haplogroup. Just overall overall sample rate over the whole world. And this is like the denominator that is divided by. So for a place that has not very many samples, then if you're looking at a haplogroup and you're looking at its frequency in India, it won't take very many samples positive for that haplogroup in India in order to make it have a high relative frequency. So it's relative frequency. It's how many samples in that area are positive for the haplogroup you looked up, divided by all of the samples in the YFOL tree. So the age of the haplogroup is not a factor in the relative frequency heat map.
Basically, I think you are using AI technologies in such application, correct?
No. You could say that the PhyloGeographer is an algorithm where I decided what sort of rules it should use, and there is an optimization component of PhyloGeographer. But the maps have no AI. The maps are much simpler computed. The frequency the heat map. The heat map is not using any AI. It's simply there are points on the map with a radius, and I use a triangular distribution, and so the center of the point gets higher weight and intensity, and further away from the center gets lower intensity until it goes until it becomes zero. And I have a grid, so I take the world and I just assume that it is a grid, and I compute for each grid square how many samples whatsoever, no matter what haplogroup, how many samples have any weight, depending on how far away they are from this grid point, and then I compute how many samples that are positive for the haplogroup we're looking at are close to this grid point. And then I just divide one by the other. And then that's how the surface is calculated. That's how the heat map is calculated. So it's not AI.
It seems to be a pretty complicated for you. It will consume a lot of effort and work on doing such way, to be honest.
It took some time. It took some time to develop, but I've been working on stuff like this in my old job. So I already had an idea how to do it. So it was easier for me. But you can actually look at the JavaScript, and you can see that it's not too much code, but it is complicated code.
Yep, I can see that.
Thank you so much. Now,
thanks for your question.
We can keep the crowd connected.
I can actually, I'd like to actually, Elena, can I call you later? I'm talking with some people.
Yes, Mr. Hunter, we give engineer Madkar a chance to translate what the dialogue between you.
الله يعطيك العافية أبو محمد.
Sure.
مساحة ثرية صراحة. وسؤالي تقني بحت، لأن كنت أسأل كيف طريقة سحب العينات أو تحديد النقاط في الهيت ماب أو في الخرائط الحرارية، كيف طريقة عمله فيها. واضح إنه الرجل عنده الكود أو البلاتفورم حقه ما هو مربوط أصلا في الواي فول، ما هو مربوط، ما في أي ترابط، هو ياخذها بشكل عشوائي، ياخذ سامبلز معينة، مجموعة سامبلز معينة يحطها على الخريطة، وبناء على الخريطة ياخذ الأفريج الأعلى عمر عينة معينة، وبعدين يقسمها على عدد العينات اللي موجودة عنده، ويطلع له الديفرنسز أو الاختلافات اللي موجودة على الخريطة، ويوزع، يسمونها على الراديوس نفسه، يوزع النقاط هذه بناء على العينات وتواجدها في الدول اللي هي محيطة فيها بشكل عام. ولكن بشكل عام الرجال قاعد يسوي جهد كبير كمبرمج من دون أي عملية ربط أو عملية انتجريشن بينه وبين البلاتفورمز الثانية مثل الواي فول أو المنصات الأخرى بشكل عام يعني.
شكرا مهندس مذكر. أبو بدر تفضل. أبو بدر تسمعني؟ We have a question from Apple Group G, but we'll wait for him. I just wanted to make sure, Engineer Madkar mentioned that you take random samples of the Y-file, but my understanding that you take all the files from the Y-file. Is it true that you take all the files or just random samples of the Y-file?
All files, all samples should be used. The only for haplogroups that Arabs are in and people from Eurasia, the only thing that is excluded are people from America or the New World who are from an old world haplogroup, I have some logic that excludes them because I didn't want my algorithm to compute something completely wrong for a migration path. So in the heat map, samples from the New World are not shown. But your question was, do I use all the samples or do I just use a random subset? No, all the samples are used. So
yes, yeah, right. العينات اللي ياخذها من الواي فول هي طبعا كل العينات باستثناء عينات العالم الجديد لأنها قد تحدث بعض الأخطاء فاستثنيت من ذلك. أبو بدر ما أدري تسمعنا ولا لا؟ أبو بدر ما معنا. Well, from the dialogue that went between you and engineer Madkar, I understood, that he was asking you about the interface that you developed to read the WiFi data, and from what I understood from you that you just you developed some file, you can call it an interface that reads the WiFi data, the location and the SNB, which are used, and the number of the samples, which are the only data that are needed for the heat map. Isn't that right?
Correct. I read the page that has the tree, and I just know all the different pages I need to look at, and my software parses that and figures out what the tree structure is. So I get two things at the same time. My software figures out what is the tree structure, meaning the name of the root and the name of the branch below it and how many children it has. And then it also has, there is a sample with this ID at this branch with this geographic code. So I have, you could say that I then store my data. I have two different kinds of data. One is the tree structure, and then the other is just the set of all the samples that are geolocated.
Yes, thank you for that. هو يعني حسب كلامه أنه طور برنامج يستطيع قراءة بيانات مشجرة الواي فول من حيث التحور والفروع والمشجرة اللي موجودة وعدد العينات اللي موجودة فيها، وطبعا الموقع الجغرافي وهي المستخدمة في الواي فول. أبو بدر تسمعنا؟
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام، تفضل.
I wish my voice is loud and clear. I'm in area.
Yeah, it is loud and clear. تفضل.
Thank you for being with us, Hunter. My little question, not difficult one.
My pleasure.
You're obtaining your raw data concerning the ancient DNA. What is the source of that data? From where you get it? Area like Europe, there are so many, so you have no problem. But area like our area and maybe East, maybe Africa, maybe there are not so many. So what is your source of obtaining? And in addition, that some countries like hiding this information. So how do you obtain it now? What's the
Okay, so I don't claim to have all of the ancient sources, all of the ancient samples. I don't claim to have all of them in my system. When I started this project, I tried to motivate other researchers to provide me the latest information about ancient samples that were found, but I couldn't get people to really help me with this. So I stopped doing it, and I decided it's simplest if I only use the ancient samples from the YFull tree, because if I track a separate source of ancient samples, and then some of these samples are actually already on the YFull tree, then this requires additional effort to disambiguate, meaning I have the same ancient sample counted twice. So the short answer is I want to only use one data source, and so I'm only using the samples from the YFull tree.
thank you. That was good. I
You're
just
welcome.
translate this question. سألته عن الرفات البشرية. يعني احنا عارفين في أوروبا ما عنده مشكلة، يعني متوفرة جدا، لكن على النقيض في منطقتنا ولا في آسيا ولا في أفريقيا أولا قلتها قلة كثيرة يعني، والشيء الثاني صعوبة الحصول عليها. فهو يقول أنا أعتمد فقط على اللي موجود بالواي فاي. هذا بعد دليل ضعف آخر. أنا بعد مسكين ما يقدر، منين بيجيب يقول أنا حاولت إني أعتمد على ناس يجيبوني، لقيت أنها جهد كبير. حقيقة يمكن على أوروبا بس نقدر أنه الموضوع قد يكون أدق يعني، بس المناطق الأخرى يعني أعتقد لن يوفق فيها.
ما أدري اللي عنده أسئلة يبغى يسألها للضيف يعني ممكن يطلب المايك ونعطي له.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
وعليكم السلام، حياك الله أبو جوهر، تفضل.
أسئلة اللي أرسلت لك سألته ولا ما سألته توك؟ أبو محمد؟
نعم، سألنا عدة أسئلة، من ضمنها الأسئلة اللي أنت سألتها. الأسئلة اللي أنت ممكن نسأله الحين أو تسأله ما دام أنك موجود، اسأله بشكل مباشر، تفضل.
Okay. Hello, Hunter. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I hear you.
Yes, it's a pleasure and honor to meet you. And
thank you very much.
I have a few questions for you, if
Sure.
time allows. So I wanted to ask about the accuracy and the error margin in the match finder, because based on my experience with family tree match finder, it is not that accurate. For example, we had one guy who tested positive for FGC6 under J1 haplogroup, and all of his matches shows different SNPs, FGC 7944 and FGC 1713, and zero matches on FGC6 or any other branch that is beneath it. So
okay,
this is something strange to me. I couldn't understand.
Yes, so so I'll try to explain how I understand it. STRs are more useful or easier to use as an indicator of relatedness if you don't have thousands and if you don't have many branching points within the last few thousand years. So I've been helping Yahya to use STR Match Finder to make some predictions for J1 men on the basis of the alpha panel, which is like 16 or 18 alleles, STRs. And this isn't that. This is not very many alleles or STRs to look at. So what I'm saying is, it depends on your haplogroup. It depends on your haplogroup how reliable the STR matches that you get are. Whether it's through FTDNA or it's through STR Match Finder. But what is true no matter what is STR Match Finder shows you more information that you can use to know if it's reliable or not, and you decide yourself. So that's the difference. STR Match Finder is not really telling you that these guys are your closest relatives. It's just showing you which rare alleles you share in common with them. And it's up to you to decide, and it takes a little bit of experience to be good at it and to be better at it. But it's up to you to decide if it looks like that guy really is your closer relative. I hope that explained.
Yeah, it's very clear. Thank you. Second
Good.
question, if time's allowed.
Yeah. It's up to the moderator.
الترجمة السؤال الأول عشان الناس يعني تكون كونكتد.
أنا رفعت ترجمة السؤال فوق.
Oh, let me can I quickly say, anyone with a question about interpreting STR Match Finder can email me later and show me a screenshot. And because I want people to use this tool, and I'm happy that they use it. As long as I don't have like 10 or 20 emails, I'll try to help everyone. Go ahead.
Okay. Second question is in the heat map. Do you consider the number of the samples or the number of branches?
For the heat map, it's each sample is used, but both diversity heat map and in the relative frequency heat map, if the samples are from a region that is more highly sampled overall, then they are divided by that regional sample rate. So you may have more samples. You may have if you have the same number of samples in Saudi Arabia as you do in Yemen, then the relative frequency heat map and the diversity heat map is going to give higher scores for Yemen because it has less samples per capita than Saudi Arabia.
Can you explain the last part?
Or actually, I said that wrong. It has less samples in any given geographic code. So, for example, if there are 100 people using one geographic code, I mean, out of everybody on the Y-fold tree, out of all the samples on the Y-fold tree, if there were 100 people that said Hadramaut, Yemen, and if there were 1,000 people saying Asir, Saudi Arabia, then if one branch had one sample from Asir and one sample from Hadramaut, Hadramaut would be given more weight because it's divided by a lower number. The regional sample rate of Hadramaut is lower than regional sample rate of Asir. So the heat maps divide the samples by the regional sample rate.
I'll be honest, I got confused.
Okay. So if you're looking at a branch that only had two samples, one sample from Asir and other sample from Hadramaut, the frequency heat map and the diversity heat map would not show same intensity, would not show the same heat in both locations because Asir has more total samples on the Y-fold tree. So it divides each place, the number of samples in that place, to show some heat on the map. It's dividing by the total number of samples in that place because that's relative frequency. So, okay, I'm not sure that I can explain it better. But it's a relative frequency. It means that that each place, the number of samples that are positive for that haplogroup in that area, it's then dividing by the total number of samples from that area, no matter what haplogroup.
It's like weighted average, Mr. Hunter, yeah?
It's weighted, exactly. It's weighted. Yeah. And the weight is the inverse of the sample rate.
Yeah, I can just explain it, باشمهندس. I can just explain it. الباشمهندس محمد سأل سؤال عن طريقة التوزيع الحراري، فذكر الباشمهندس هنتر إنه إذا في فرعين، واحد من عسير واحد من حضرموت، والفرع بتاع عسير تحته عينات أكتر مثلا 100 عينة، وفرع حضرموت تحته عينتين مثلا، فهنا بتظهر الحرارية، الخريطة الحرارية ستظهر كثافة أعلى بالنسبة للفرع بتاع عسير أعلى من فرع حضرموت لأنه تحتها 100 عينة. فهنا بيحسب بحاجة اسمها التكرار النسبي أو relative frequency اللي هي طرق من طرق الإحصاء الرياضي. فهي الطريقة. شكرا. نشوف الأستاذ فجري وبعده أحمد، ولا أحمد وبعده فجري، ما أعرف الأول فيه.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام.
Mr. Hunter, can I ask you an accurate question about the immigration which occurred in the 600 after Christ, which
Sure.
the first wave of the Islamic immigration to North Africa, and the second one, which occurred also in the 1000th century after Christ. Can we read the accuracy of the age of the mutation which happened in that area, immigrated in that time, and can we see them with their mutation that they came from the Arabian Peninsula in that time, and we can divine the first wave and the second wave by the age of each one of them?
Okay, so short answer, and I theoretically this would be possible. This would be possible. Even if you don't have ancient DNA, it would be possible if maybe some of these branches stayed in the origin location, but other ones moved to North Africa. And you can look at when the most recent common ancestor, TMRCA, is estimated to have lived. Yes, you could assume that the origin was somewhere in the Middle East and not in North Africa if you have enough diversity. So if you look at the diversity map, and the diversity map shows that it's probably from Middle East, then you can make this assumption that this is a lineage that was originated in the Middle East and then some of them migrated later to North Africa. I don't know which. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, I don't know which branches that would be, but I'm just saying theoretically such data could exist just from the living people that have tested today. It would be possible to see these kinds of trends.
Yes, Mr. Hunter, what happened? We noticed the mutations under a certain mutation like FGC 1696. So we think in that mutation have certain mutations like FGC 1713 and FGC 5 and FGC 7 and FGC 7944, and we located them in the North African area. And also we noticed that the Andalusia area, also we noticed some ruins of was tested in Gornata area are also came from the Arabian Peninsula. So can be that an clue or evidence for being these mutations came to this area after 600 after Christ in that time?
Yeah, I'm not personally familiar with these branches, but if you have an ancient sample there that dates to after this lineage, if your theory is that is that this lineage came there before that ancient sample, then yeah, of course, yes.
So we notice, Mr. Hunter, we notice that certain tribes have certain mutations. We can divide them. We can tell everybody that these mutations have an ancestry linkage in the Arabian Peninsula. Like you are not familiar with our mutation, which we are trying to study, but we find each mutation came to the North Africa, have an ancestor lives until now in the Arabian Peninsula. That mean, in our opinion, that mean the main source of this mutation, which located in North Africa, came from the Arabian Peninsula from several branches. We named these branches, and they still have their ancient name, like Mudar. You know Mudar. Are you familiar with Mudar and Qais or not?
I'm not familiar with those names.
Okay, we know these tribes went to in the immigration line, went to North Africa in the 600s after Christ, and another wave came in the 1000 after Christ. In that time, we located these branches, and they still live like a Bedouin lives in their area. Still have some of them still have their ancient name. Didn't disappear, and also their relative in the Arabian Peninsula still have the same name, and they are gathered, all of them, each of them, several branches, each of them gathered in this same mutation. This is a good clue for our case to prove that these people was immigrated from the Arabian Peninsula in that time.
Yeah, I would say that sounds like a good case given the circumstantial evidence. I think because I think that the DNA data has to also look at data about people's names, and the information about people's names, only looking at people's names without DNA corroboration is not good enough. But if you have done the DNA testing and then you notice that people have similar names, then this should be taken into account. How likely is that to happen by chance? And I'm not saying that this can be easily computed, but I make arguments that like this, where I try to think how much likely is this? Could this be a coincidence, or is it more likely that this shows a common origin? And I think names can be taken into account. Yeah.
Thank you, Hunter. فجري, can you
You're welcome.
ترجم مختصر السؤال والإجابة للجماعة؟
سؤالي أول شيء كنا بنفرق بين الهجرة الأولى في الفتوحات الإسلامية الأولى وبين الهجرة القيسية، هل ممكن التفريق بينهم؟ وكانت إجابته إذا حنا حصلنا على الأسامي الأولى للهجرة الأولى والأسامي الثانية نقدر التفريق بينهم. السؤال الثاني، هل نستطيع من خلال دراسة الهجرتين ومن معرفة الأسماء المحافظ عليها في الهجرتين إعادة كل منهم إلى منشأ الأول؟ إجابته كانت كالتالي: إذا فعلا لا زالوا موجودين في الجزيرة العربية بالأسامي نفسها، وأيضا في المجموعة الثانية المهاجرين في شمال أفريقيا ومحافظين على أسمائهم، يقول هذا لن يكون محض مصادفة، سيكون فعلا هذا أمر يستشهد فيه، وهذا أمر يؤخذ بالحسبان والاعتبار. ويعطيكم العافية.
شكرا أستاذ فجري. ندي الأستاذ أحمد كنفاني.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. حياكم الله، حياك الله أخي بدران وأخوي عبد الله البركات. جزاكم الله كل خير على هالمساحة، وبرحب بالحضور، يعطيكم ألف عافية. أنا بس عندي سؤالين حابب أوجههم مباشرة لمستر هانتر إذا أمكن.
تفضل.
Okay. Hi, Mr. Hunter. We would this is Ahmed Kanafani. I would like to welcome you in this very valuable session. And
thank you, Ahmed.
To meet you. I have just two quick questions because I'm a bit confused between the heat map and the migration map. So my first question is if you can just re-explain the main difference between the migration map and the heat map, please. That's my first question.
Okay, so what the main weakness, I would say. Okay, I would say the heat map is an absolute calculation. It's showing the relative frequency of a line all over the world. It's an absolute computation. It's not saying this is where it came from. It's just showing you where people living today, where they live, and as a higher percentage of the overall population. It's a different kind of information than the migration path. The migration path is trying to show you, is trying to compute where did the ancestors go. It's not guaranteed to be correct. It's not an absolute kind of thing. I mean, of course, there is an absolute truth, but nobody knows it. But it's using some rules that I wrote that I hoped would usually result in an approximate path that makes sense based on the data. Its weakness is it does not take into account the sample rates of different parts of the world. So it would be, it's going to show more sample. It's going to show the PhyloGeographer migration path is going to skew the origins toward more heavily sampled regions, such as Saudi Arabia. And because it's sampled, it's much more. Okay, so I think that's the quick answer.
We can translate أحمد لأنك سألت بالإنجليزي ممكن تترجم أنت ذاتك. لا تفضل ترجم أنت ذاتك تفضل.
والله أنا بالترجمة مش يعني أفضل إذا ممكن أخي بدران تاخد الترجمة يكون أفضل. بخاف أنا.
خلاص طيب أنا حترجم بسرعة. الأستاذ أحمد سأله ما هو الفرق بين خريطة الهجرة والخريطة الحرارية اللي هي الخريطة الحرارية هي الخريطة لعدد العينات الفاحصة أو الموجودة في ذلك الخط. قال له يوجد اختلاف كبير. الخريطة الحرارية هي تمثيل حقيقي لهؤلاء الناس الذين فحصوا، أما خريطة الهجرة هي تضريبات تغريبية لهذا الخط الذي هاجر به هؤلاء القوم. قد يكون صحيح وطبعا يوجد خط هجرة صحيح، لكن لا يستطيع أن يجزم بأنه هو هذا الخط لأنه لا يأخذ في الحسبان عدد العينات ككلها، يعني مقارنة بالعدد العينات في كل بقاع العالم. هذا حسب ما فهمته. ممكن تزال سؤالك الثاني حتى نسحب لآخر.
صحيح تمام. Okay, and Mr. Hunter, my second question is if we are looking for the origin of the haplogroup and the sub-haplogroups, then we should focus on the migration map, because the migration map will tell us approximately, as you said, the origin of the haplogroups and the sub-haplogroups. So my second question is the methodology beyond the calculation of calculating the origin of a specific sub-haplogroup. Is it based on the quantity of the samples in a specific country, or there are other methods in calculating the origin of the haplogroups and the sub-haplogroups in the migration map?
Okay, yes, that's a good question, and the methodology is my software starts at the very bottom, so it starts at a terminal subclade, and then it looks at where are those samples say they are from, and then it will pick, usually it will maybe take an average of those locations, and then it will represent this terminal subclade, final branch, with this place that is like the average of the locations. And then once every terminal subclade does this, the algorithm then pretends that each of these terminal subclades are just one sample that is from that place. And then it does it again, and it goes up the tree, and it goes up the tree. See if that is can be explained well, or I hope that helps explain.
Yes, yes. I mean, now, I mean, it's definitely more clear. So, I mean, it takes an average, according to my understanding, it takes the average of the quantities of samples in the tree, and there is a specific algorithm. And please, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Is that it calculates the algorithm calculates the frequency of the samples up and down the tree. But I mean, according to my understanding, is that this is not the only criteria in calculating the origin. I mean, it's not like, for example, the heat map. The heat map takes 100% the weight of the samples in the specific country. So we're talking about the quantity of certain samples in a specific country. However, the migration map computes it in a different way. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes. I can explain a little bit more. It calculates the average of starting at the terminal subclade. It calculates the average of those samples, and then it goes up the tree branch by branch, and at each branch, it does the same type of computation where all of the siblings are considered equal in terms of weight. All of the siblings are considered equal, and then whatever the average of the siblings' children was, that's used to calculate the parents' location.
Perfect. I mean, perfect, Mr. Hunter. This is it's very clear for me. I would like to thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
أنا حترجم. الأستاذ أحمد سأل عن كيفية حساب أصل الفروع وليس الفرع الرئيسي عندما يكون هنالك تفرع وتكون تحته كثير من العينات. الأستاذ هنتر الباشمهندس هنتر ذكر إنه يتم الحساب بإنه لكل فرع يعطوا المتوسط، يعني إذا كان في أب وتحته أبناء يحسب لكل الأبناء المتوسط، وبعد ذلك يرفع هذا المتوسط إلى أعلى بحيث أنه يجد أعلاهم هو الذي يمثل الفرع الذي منه العينة. هذا ما فهمته يعني. نشوف بعده الأستاذ JOL مود. جلمود صخر حطه السيل من علي. تفضل.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Hunter, for giving us this opportunity. My question is related to the previous explanation of your algorithm regarding the heat map. From my understanding, as you explained, that you, from your example, you will give Hadramaut samples more weight, more than Asir sample. Is that right?
If there were less total samples from Hadramaut on the Y-full tree relative to Asir.
Okay, let me explain this to you. So if there is, if the as you explained before, if the percentage per capita in Hadramaut is more, it will give more weight to Hadramaut, even if there is 1,000 samples in Asir, right?
It's actually, it's not computed per capita, but it's simply how many samples in Y-full are marked Hadramaut, and how many samples in Y-full are marked Asir. That's where the numbers come from.
Okay, thank you so much. It's very clear to me right now. So my second question is it's about
ممكن اترجم ده بس دقيقه جلمود لو سمحت.
تفضل.
الاستاذ جلمود سأل اذا في نفس المثال اللي ضرب قبل بين عسير وحضرموت، هو الظاهر ما فهمه كويس. الاستاذ وضح له انه بيحسبوا الحساب بتاع العينات بعدد العينات المفحوصة، وليس لأنه مثلا عسير في عدد سكان أكثر من حضرموت ولا كذا، لا، عدد العينات المفحوصة. تفضل السؤال الثاني.
طيب. My second question is let's say there is 3 haplogroups in the Arabias, alpha, beta, and delta. And let's say delta, the members belong to haplogroup delta. They were so active, and if there is like another results for haplogroup A, alpha, and beta, they just ignore it, and all the results they upload to YFOL. It's delta haplogroup. Do you think that's gonna affect the results or how your software will work? Like it can give like a wrong estimate about the distribution in the Arabia?
Yes, there's nothing I can really do about that, and it's I guess we would call this sample, like some sort of bias in researchers to be more interested to research people of a certain lineage than another. And this, I don't know how strong this effect could be, because to some extent, like, we don't even know how many people there are in the other group because they're not being motivated to do tests. It's definitely something that people should think about and keep in mind.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Can we say that it's not a skewed distribution and not a normal distribution?
We could definitely say that if in a certain culture or region people are not really interested, if they find out that they're a certain haplogroup, or also like a clan may have more money and resources and may test a lot of people, and they may be overrepresented, and there may be a lot of other people that are not represented. And these kinds of things it will take a long time to get past those iniquities. If more and more just random people test over time, then we can solve that problem.
Thank you so much, Hunter. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I know, and on a personal note, my haplogroup is affected by the same thing, because a lot of us today live in Albania, but many of our ancestors were living in Serbia or Bosnia, and today the people that are living there do not want to associate with Albanians. So if they learn that they are a male line that is more closely related to Albanians than to other Serbs, then they just want to forget that they learned about this, and then we don't get to learn the true picture. So I know exactly what you're talking about. My haplogroup's affected by this.
Thank you so much. I thought this problem just in our culture. So from what I learned from you, so I think maybe this is in many parts in the world, not just in.
Yes, I think so. I think in many different parts of the world there might be some similar dynamics.
Thank you so much, Hunter.
أشكرك أخويا جلمود.
لو سمحت
مشكور.
لو سمحت ودي اترجم
تفضل ترجم.
شكرا. بالنسبه للسؤال الاول، كان عن موضوع النقطه اللي تتكلم فيها عن الهيت ماب، لاني انا صراحه فهمت بطريقه مختلفه، وبعدين اكد الفهم انه الهيت ماب تعتمد على النتائج في الوايفول وعلى حسب النسبه الموجوده في الوايفول. يعني هو في مثاله اذا كان مثلا في 1000 عينه في عسير او في 100 عينه في حضرموت، ممكن يعطي مثلا هيت ماب تعطي تواجد للتحور في حضرموت اكثر حسب النسبه لعدد العينات لهذا التحور في الواي فول. يعني المساله مو مساله عدد العينات، المساله كم نسبه العينات الموجوده في الواي فول لهذا التحور. وبالنسبه للسؤال الثاني سالته، قلت له طيب الهيت ماب لو مثلا لو عندنا 3 هابلو جروب مثلا الفا وبيتا ودلتا، لو مثلا مجموعه الدلتا كانوا يعملون فحوصات ونشيطين وجدا مجتهدين، ومثلا في عينات تخرج على الهابلو جروب الثانيه وما يتم رفعها مثلا على الواي فول، قال لي فعلا تتاثر. يقول هذا شيء ما اقدر انا يعني اتحكم فيه، فعلا حيكون في نتائج خاطئه، لانه اذا كان مثلا مجموعه نشطه وعندها فلوس وعندها ريسورسز، او مثلا في مجموعه ثانيه ما مهتمه، ففي الاخير حيكون في نتائج ما هي مطابقه للواقع. ويقول انا اتفهم ذا الشيء لانه انا نفس المشكله عند اللي موجوده عندنا في العالم العربي. يقول في البانيا هو اصول البانيه، يعني التحور حقه اكثر في البانيا، لكن الناس لما مثلا يفحص ويطلع بعدين انه او عفوا من صربيا، وما يطلع من صربيا، يطلع مثلا من اماكن ثانيه من البانيا او البوسنه، يبدا يعني يهتم ينسى موضوع الفحص وكذا، فهذا يسوي انه نتائج ما تكون طابقه للواقع. ارجو اني يعني شرحت حسب افضل طريقه، وشكرا لكم لاعطاء الفرصه. السلام عليكم.
جزاك الله خير اخ جلمود، ما قصرت. Excuse me, Mr. Hunter. I just wanted to come back to the same point that Mr. Jalmud has asked you. When you have a correction factor or a weighting factor for the population of Hadramaut with the population of Asir, assuming 100 samples from Hadramaut, as he said, and 1,000 samples from Asir, the correction factor, is it the ratio between those who are on this certain SNB to the total number of the country in both sides? And if the percentage, for example, in Asir is higher than that in Hadramaut, you will give more weight for Asir. And if it's the opposite, Hadramaut, although the total number is less, but the percentage from those who added their samples to the YFUL, they are more, then you will give a higher weight for, and it's directly proportional. Is that right?
Yes, it's directly proportional.
Okay, thank you very much.
أنا
كنت سؤالي لنفس استمرار سؤال أخونا جلمود، لأنه قال إنه مثلا لو في عينات في حضرموت أقل وفي عسير أكثر بسبب إنه يعني حللوا أكثر وكذا، هل قال بيعطي لها وزن أكثر؟ بس فأنا كنت سؤالي على الميكانيزم أو الآلية اللي يتم من خلالها وزن هذه الوزنية، عمل الوزنية. فهي الوزنية إنه عدد العينات على هذا الفرع بالنسبة لمجمل العينات اللي موجودة من حضرموت. مثلا 100 عينة طلعت على فرع مثلا التحور الحميري 3723، فيقسمون العينات هذه على مجموع العينات في حضرموت من جميع التحورات. ونفس الكلام في عسير، فلو خرجت مثلا في حضرموت النسبة 10% وفي عسير 5%، فبيكون وزن حضرموت ضعفين وزن عسير، بالرغم من انه هناك 1000 عينة وهنا 100 عينة. طبعا الارقام افتراضية، اصلا العينات ما وصلت لها الاعداد في تلك المناطق، ولكن
وضح عبد الله ابو محمد، وضح عدل على اساس هذا نفس سؤالي، على اساس اذا وضحت لي عدل يمكن ما اسال السؤال.
تفضل.
انت اللي هو العمليه الاحصائيه معتمده مثلا على العمر، مثلا هذا منشأ في حضرموت ولا منشأ في عسير مثلا؟
اي نعم، هو الحين طبعا في فروع لكل واحد منهم، لكن الحين لو افترضنا التحور الحميري 3723 مرتبط بشكل عام يمكن منطقة في وسط اليمن، يمكن ما هو في حضرموت.
نعم.
أيوة.
خلك على حضرموت وعلى عسير مثلا.
أيوة. فالحين أيوة، ف3723 يمثل جذم قديم موجود في قلب اليمن، الجزء القديم من اليمن اللي هو المنطقة الجبلية جدل.
صح.
أيوة. بعدين له فروع موجودة عندنا بحضرموت، وفروع موجودة بعسير، وفروع عندنا بالدمام ترى بالشرقية موجود لهم فرع أيضا. فهو يقيس كل منطقة كم عدد العينات اللي طلعت عليها. هو ما أدري موجود بالمساحة ولا طلع شكله. ننتظره يرجع إن شاء الله.
لا بس اشرح لنا. شوف.
أيوة، فهو يشوف النسبة.
قبل لا يجي بعطيك الرؤية. هل مثل ما عشان نتجاوز هذه النقطة، السؤال لازم يكون كالتالي: إذا العدد العينات واجتهاد الناس خلت 100 عينة، وهناك لم يكونوا مجتهدين وفحصوا 10 عينات، طبعا الخريطة الحرارية راح تعطي حق اللي اجتهدوا أكثر، صح ولا خطأ؟
لا خطأ. الخريطة
ليش؟
الحرارية بتعطي شو اسمه
العمر الأكبر.
لا، هو بيعمل ويتنج فاكتور اللي هو ايش؟
معتمدا على ايش؟
هذا زي ما يسمونه معامل وزن.
الراديوس يا ابو محمد. هذا طبعا وش قصده؟ يمكن شرح اخوي بدران.
هو الجريد يعني الجريد
إيه؟
شفت في الخارطة في جريدز اللي هي مربعات موجودة في الخارطة. كانت الجريد الوحدة سابقا تمثل 40,000 كيلومتر، يعني حوالي 200 كيلو في 200 كيلو. اليوم
يقول نزلها ل10,000 على ما
نزلها 10,000، يعني معدل 100 في 100. وطبعا هو يحط الانتنسيتي او الكثافة لهذه باللون. فإذا كان اللون يعني بنفسجي هذه أقل درجات الكثافة. إذا لون وصل إلى الأحمر تقريبا أو كذا هذا يعطي، أو أصفر يكون وسط، وإذا أحمر يعني يعطي لون يعني زي ما تقول نسبة كثافة أعلى. ونرجع لسؤال أخونا فجري. النسبة الحين زي ما ذكرنا الحين، نفترض أنه مولود في التحور هذا الحميري، مولود مثلا في صنعاء جدلا، يعني من باب يعني التمثيل، وطلع عينات مثلا في شو اسمه موجودة في حضرموت، وموجودة في عسير، وموجودة بالدمام، موجودة بالكويت، موجودة في مناطق عدة، وفي مناطق زي ما تقول وفي العراق أيضا. في زي العراق نسبة اللي حللوا بالنسبة لهذا قليلة. الكويت أعلى شوي. فهل الكويت مثلا مقارنة مع العراق بياخذ وزن أكبر لأن عيناته أكثر؟ لا. إيش اللي بيصير؟ تجي تاخذ الاف جي سي 2 مثلا اللي أنت عليه، فنسبة الاف جي سي 2 اللي طلعت بالكويت بالنسبة للعينات كلها، مثلا لو قلنا الاف جي سي 2 طلعوا 10% بالكويت، وبالعراق طلعوا 5%، فيعطى الكويت وزن أكبر لأنه عنده 10% من العينات 2000 أو 2000 وشوي، بينما في العراق
شلون تتجاوزها؟ ما في حل
حاليا، ما في. هذا حل يعتبر إحصائي، ما هو مثالي، لكنه يصحح بعض الأخطاء. يعني يعني التركيز في العينات مثلا في مناطق زي ما أنت عارف، مثلا عندنا في السعودية وبالكويت بعض الفروع يمكن عليها 1000 عينة، ونفس الناس يمكن ما يجوا 100,000، بينما بالعراق مثلا يمكن 1,000,000 وما عليها 500 عينة ولا 200 عينة. فهي تمثل مجموعة بشرية أكبر هذه اللي بالعراق. ونسبة العينات هذه لما تقيسها على مستوى البلد، لأن البلد بيكون تقريبا يتوقع طبعا، وهذا بعد أيضا ما هو صحيح، يتوقع أنه نسبة اللي حللوا يعني بنسبة يعني متماثلة في جميع أنحاء الوطن، ولكن الواقع لا. الناس اللي في بغداد بيحللون أكثر من اللي في الأنبار.
بشرح لك وجهة النظر. اف جي سي 2 مثلا توجدت في الكويت بس فرعين وعليهم 100 عينة، وجد في العراق تقريبا 20 فرع واللي مفحوص 20 عينة. ما يصير هذا حل؟ يعني نسأله السؤال هذا الحيوي.
لا، سؤالك
يا ابو محمد ولا يهونون اخواني، بس نقطة اوضحها. الرجل لما نتكلم عن الواي فول اعطى مثال عسير وحضرموت، يقول لو في 1000 عينة مفحوصة في عسير و100 عينة مثلا مفحوصة في حضرموت، ولكن اللي مرفوع للواي فول من حضرموت أكثر من اللي مرفوع في عسير، فيصير فيه الفريكونسي أو الهيتنج ماب يكون مركز على حضرموت أكثر، بينما تجد عدد العينات المفحوصة أصلا في أبها أكثر أو في عسير أكثر. فهو ما يقيس على عدد العينات المفحوصة، يقيس على عدد العينات اللي مرفوعة على الواي فول نفسه، فهو ياخذ من الواي فول كمصدر كسورس.
هذا اللي حنا نبي نتجاوزه، هذا اللي بنحاول ننتصر عليه، يعني عشان نتغلب على العملية الإحصائية. السؤال حق هنتر راح يكون كالتالي.
بس دقيقة أخوي أبو عبد الرحمن، أخونا أبو صالح يحيى العلي، هنتر شكله طلع من المساحة، ما أدري هو راجع ولا، لأني والله ما أعرف حسابه، أنا ما حفظته صراحة، فما أدري تنسق معه ولا يعني أنا رجع خلاص يرجع.
خلنا نسأله يا أبو.
خلني أنا بسأله بس جزء وبعدين أنت تسأل بعدي. Excuse me, Mr. Hunter, you told me just a few minutes ago that the number, the percentage of the samples that are from a certain country is directly proportional to the diversity or to the weight. Somebody here asked another question, assuming that you have in the other country, for example, Hadramaut and Asir. If in Asir there is 2 children, while in Hadramaut the same SNB has 10 children, and the ratio of the numbers is still the same. Does the diversity under this father that he
branch
this branch does it take do you take it into consideration? Yes, Mr. Hunter, you can go.
خش سؤال. قل له أول شيء سمعت سؤالي يمكن ما سمعك يمكن فاتح.
ما أنا الحين أسأله باقي هو يمكن ما يسمعني. Excuse me, Mr. Hunter, do you hear me? ما أدري شكله باقي ما يسمع. Mr. Hunter, do you hear me? هلا أبو صالح، والله ما أدري هو يسمعنا ولا ما أدري في بينكم تواصل ولا قريب منك إذا كان تقدر.
Yes, I hear you. You hear me?
Yes, now I can hear you. Yes, go on.
Okay.
Did you hear my question?
Yes, I think your question was about diversity map.
Yes, I hear some because you were mentioning the weighting factor a few minutes ago. And here somebody raised another question. He says, assuming the numbers are right, as we mentioned earlier, but the branch in Hadramaut has more diversity than the branch in Asir. Do you take that into consideration for the diversity map?
Yes, only if you have looked up that if the top branch, if the branch that you have entered to see the diversity for, if that branch has 10 children and 8 of them are from Hadramaut and 2 of them are from another place that has same sample rate as Hadramaut, then but it's a different place, then the diversity, the highest diversity should be Hadramaut.
The less number.
Yes,
the one that had the one that most of the branches are from one place, then that place should be the higher diversity.
Yes, despite the fact that it has less number of samples, right?
No, only it can only have it could be computed as higher diversity only if the ratio of the sample rate exceeded the ratio of the numbers of branches in one place and the other.
Let me rephrase, Mr. Hunter. Are you with me?
Yes.
Let me rephrase. About Hadramaut have 20 branches. Each branch have a certain SMB under this mutation. So it will be 20 branches independent in each other. But in Asir, we have only 100 sample. And the 100 sample only came from 2 branches. And in Hadramaut, the 20 case, the 20 sample, have the oldest mutations. So what is your consideration in that issue in particular?
Can you tell me again? It was if there were 20 total samples of all haplogroups. Is that what you said for Hadramaut?
No. There is a mutation have 20 branches under it. Each branch have 1 sample. So all these branches coming from 1 ancestor, but this ancestor also have 1 branch or 2 branch in Hadramaut in Asir, and they have 100 sample. The weight for the samples 100 in Asir. The weight for the samples in Hadramaut is 20, but the 20 in Hadramaut came in 20 branches, independent branches from each other. Are this conquer our problem? Does this make a resolution for our problem? With the diversity is an issue in that matter.
So it's hard for me to visualize exactly the tree structure you're describing, because the answer depends exactly how the tree structure is. So if there is one, if there are two branches at the top, let's say that there are two branches at the top.
Yeah.
One in Hadramaut and one in Asir. Then it doesn't matter for diversity map. It doesn't matter how many are under the Asir branch. And it doesn't matter how many branches are under the Asir branch. If let's just pretend every single guy is Asir under that branch, and let's pretend every single guy under the other branch is Hadramaut. It doesn't matter for my calculation how many branches and how many total samples there are under each of these two top children branches. It will be the same calculated result. And that calculated result, if it was just one child branch that then has lots and lots of guys from Hadramaut, and one child branch that then has lots of guys from Asir, the calculated result for diversity would be whichever of those two regions has less total samples on the Y-fold tree, that place would be shown as higher diversity.
Thank you. Well, how could we conquer that problem?
Well, I don't see that is a problem.
No, because we have a problem with people are testing themselves more numbers than the others. We cannot give up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Then about over-representation, and sometimes that might cause problem with your algorithm.
Well, yeah. Okay, now we're getting into there's a technical thing that we can talk about here that is a problem that is interesting. If Saudi Arabia, well, we know Saudi Arabia is sampled more than Yemen, and so for a haplogroup to have higher diversity. So that means that for the diversity heat map, any samples from Saudi Arabia, any branch that is found only in Saudi Arabia, it will be penalized. It will have a lower weight because the weight is the inverse of the sample rate. So for a haplogroup, it's possible that sometimes. It's possible that because of a big difference in the regional sample rate, it's possible that a haplogroup could be computed to have high diversity in a place that might not be the real origin, but because of low sample rate, we just have one child branch in that place, but it's a very, very undersampled place. So this is a factor that can add unreliability in the diversity map. And so the unreliability in the diversity map can only be mitigated if more people from the unsampled regions are tested. That's the question. That's the answer to the question.
ليت أبو عبد الرحمن ترجم سؤالك والأجوبة للمستمعين.
I can. Can you still hear me?
Yeah. Yes, I can. Hear you.
If I wanted to mention one other thing, if it's okay, if we finish this topic.
Yes. Go on.
Okay. The other thing, when we talked earlier about if we have an ancient sample, then this is like a guarantee that we know where the haplogroup originated. This I'm addressing this topic. Sometimes it is a guarantee, but sometimes it's not a guarantee, and it depends how old the haplogroup we're looking at is, and because like one of the other men that asked the question, he said, we know that in the last 400 years, people moved around a lot, and maybe where they're living now is not really where they all came from. Same thing can happen with ancient samples. So even if we have a 5,000-year-old or 4,000-year-old sample, that sample still could be a relatively recent immigrant to that area. Something to keep in mind.
Yes, thank you. هو إضافة بسيطة أضافها المهندس هنتر، يقول يعني زي ما ذكر أحد الإخوان اللي قال إنه في هجرات قد تكون حدثت من 400 سنة أو 500 سنة. أيضا عندما يوجد رفات في موقع وعمره قديم قد يكون يعني يمثل هجرة أيضا يعني حديثة في وقتها. طبعا في وقت حدوث يعني الرفات لو عمره 4000 سنة أو 5000 سنة قد لا يكون مرتبط بالمنطقة، قد يكون أتى من منطقة أخرى. ما أدري اللي عنده أسئلة إضافية أو شيء من الشباب.
I have a question for Mr. Hunter about if you have any background about the T2T technology and how it's going to affect the Y-full tree and your work. If you can just give us a brief of what you expect going to happen from the T2T, because there's lots of speculation about it's going to be affecting the calculation. Now we know we calculate 141 years based on the mutation rate and stuff. So if you can just give us a little bit about this topic, I'd be appreciated.
Okay, I have to be honest. I'm not that involved with the T2T developments, so I don't really know, because I don't really know what the impact. I know that more branches will be found, right? Because they're going to find more branching points in a part of J1 that only exists that only exist in J1. So there may be some SNPs that it's just not part of the reference sequence to look in a specific place. So we'll have more branching points. So I guess it would just be like an acceleration. I don't know if it's going to be more of an acceleration than what is already happening, just as time goes on and more people do WGS tests. But it won't affect my software. Will just get the same. It won't affect the nature of the data that I get, but the data that I get will be better. So that's good.
تفضل المهندس بدران ترجم.
Thank you. سألته عن التقنية بتاعت T2T وكيف ستؤثر على عمله وعلى المشجرة بتاعت الوايفول. قال صراحة هو ما داخل في التطوير بتاع T2T، لكن من يعني خلال معرفته العامة إنه حتأثر بشكل بسيط في بعض الأشياء، يعني في بعض يعني خصوصا في التشجير حتزيد عدد الفروع. ده حاجة مؤكدة.
راح تنقص.
لا، الفروع بتزيد، ده حسب الكلام.
يعني هو المقصد انه يعني بالنهايه بالنسبه له هو تحورات، يعني ففي النهايه هو ما تفرق معه.
عيد السؤال. ask him another time بدران.
Mr. Fajri, he think you said the less branches will be when T2T be implemented, but I told him you said it's going to be more branches because we're going to discover more. Is that true?
Oh, I think there will be more branches. Yeah.
Wait. Let me ask him. Let me rephrase, Mr. Hunter, please. I am familiar with the T2T. I can the IGV. I put the BAM file, and we found in our mutation FGC2 that we have now more than 37 branches. And when we tested the WGS, and we have tumelar mechanism, we found the branches had been shrinked, and we have less branches than the 37. Do you agree with that, Mr. Hunter?
How did the branches shrink?
Because
دقيقة أبو عبد الرحمن، أنت الحين الكلام اللي قصدوه هم يقولون أن التحورات بتزيد، أنت تتكلم على أنه بيطلع تحور يجمع كل ايوه تتكلم، بس هم يتكلمون على العدد الاجمالي مش يتكلمون عن الابناء.
بس لا يمكن الناس تفهم غلط اخوي عبد الله، عشان كذا يوضح.
خليني اترجم له، انا بترجم له، ما هي مشكله.
ترجم له عشان لان شوف we stand on the wrong leg, me and Mr. Badran.
Okay, just a minute. Mr. Hunter, he agrees with you that it will be more, but the difference that, for example, his FGC2 has 37 children, and with the T2T, some of the 37, for example, 5 or 4, will come under one SNB.
Yeah. Okay, so, I understand.
The number of children will be less for FGC2, but the total number of FGC2 children will be more, of course.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying. In my haplogroup, this is not about T2T, but it's just something that can happen when we have more people test and finally find the SNP that unites these men that we did not know were more closely related to one another. There were 4 different branches in one of my haplogroups that several years later, finally they found that there's a deletion that these 4 branches have. And so the number of total branches below the root that we were looking at shrunk. And yeah, that can happen. That will always happen every once in a while. But what I just mean is whatever the truth is, whatever the true picture is, we'll get closer to the truth when we have the T2T, whether it's more or less.
That means the T2T will help us to unite branches together and make more mutations.
Yes, it will help you to unite the branches that there wasn't enough evidence to know that they should be united.
And we can see that during our testing and during our seeing for the tumelar to tumelar mechanism. So I think the T2T will have a development on this science. So in the future, that will be more accuracy for the branches, more united branches, give us a certain father for a separated branches now in this moment.
Yeah.
Are you agreeing?
Yes. Yes, I agree. And then this development will help our theorization of the origins, because maybe you had 4 branches that had a different geography from everybody else, and you thought before T2T, we just thought these 4 were not related to one another. But then after T2T, we find, all these 4 guys descend from one man. That explains why all 4 have the outlier geography. Then we understand better the ancient origins when we understand how they're related.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hunter.
شكرا اخوي ابو عبد الرحمن. كان سؤال اخونا ابو عبد الرحمن كان يقول انه الابناء يقلون، وكلامه صحيح يعني، بس كان اخونا المهندس بدران ذكر انه التحورات تزيد. هو صحيح التحورات تزيد، ولكن في تحورات
مما يؤدي الى تقليل الافرع.
اي نعم، يعني فمثلا الاف جي سي 2 عنده مثلا 37 ولد، بيصيرون 5 أو 4 اولاد، وبعدين هذول الفروع 37 كل 5 6 بيجون تحت واحد من التحورات الجديده اللي اتت من تقنيه التي 2 تي. Here, Mr. Hunter, I have a demonstration of your software. It's in the banner up. I put for my SNB the diversity animation, and also the path or the track of migration for the ancestors. So it can, for me, I believe it is a powerful tool that helped me to understand, the migration path. For example, if you look at it, the lower portion that is in Yemen, this happened about 7,000 years ago. And the last portion, which is in Saudi Arabia, in Taif or Mecca area, it is about 2,500 years ago. So through 5,000 years, we have a migration path that went a little bit northeast, and then a little bit north, and then northwest, and then northeast, and finally northwest. So, and another tweet up there also, it shows the how the diversity for the FT3440, and you see it as an animation. It started from somewhere in Taif, and then it went north and south, and it went. So this was a very powerful tool for me to understand my SNB, and I hope in the future we will have more. أنا أعطيت هنا بس مثال المهندس هنتر عن تحورنا وعن خط الهجرة. حطيتها طبعا أنا في البنر تغريدتين، واحدة تبين التحور العربي اللي نزل من شمال الجزيرة العربية قبل حوالي 7,000 سنة، اللي هو حفيد الاس 4924، الحفيد العربي زد اس 5383، نزل إلى اليمن تقريبا قبل 7,000 سنة، وبعدين بدأت يطلع له أبناء وينتشرون في جنوب الجزيرة العربية وأجزاء من شمالها، والمسار اللي موجود من الولادة من 7,000 سنة إلى آخر حفيد حسب المشجرة اللي هو FT3442 قبل حوالي 2500 سنة، وموجود في منطقة الطائف إلى الباحة تقريبا. وبعدين المشجرة التغريدة الثانية اللي هي الدايفرسيتي والانتشار للتحور، ويبين ولادة التحور ثم انتشاره من خلال تطبيقين من التطبيقات اللي طورها هنتر، وهي تعتبر أداة قوية لفهم التحور وانتشاره وش اسمه. فما أدري اللي عنده أحد سؤال أو شيء يتفضل.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased that you find this tool useful for your research.
Yes, thank you very much. Yeah, it is actually, and it helped us a lot to understand, not only in my SNB, and also for the other people who sometimes they ask about their SNBs. I try my best to do the same for them and give them an explanation for where, of course, we noticed. And as time proceeds and more files are coming into the YFull database, this will change the position of birth for the SNB a little bit here or there, but still within the area for most of them. And when you compare them to the upper branches and the lower branches, this will give you a more comprehensive picture about the SNB. هنا يعني هو مبسوط انه يعني احنا استفدنا من هذه، وذكرت فيها انه يعني مع تغيير اضافه العينات، طبعا الموقع اللي مذكور انه ولد فيه هذا التحور قد يتغير قليلا يمينا او شمالا، او يعني حسب العينات اللي دخلت، وهذا امر يعني طبيعي، ولكنه يساعد في فهم شو اسمه. ابو ابراهيم تفضل اذا عندك اضافه او سؤال. أخذنا الوقت حنا.
أبدا، الله يعطيكم العافية. بس أنا يعني أؤيد كل الكلام اللي ذكره مستر هنتر. كلام الله يعطيه العافية 100%. شكرا لكم.
شكرا مستر أبو إبراهيم. Thanks you for the information that you have given to us, and it was very useful. Also, we have somebody who's a cousin to you from the J2 group. He's from Hadramaut, and maybe he can participate in a dialogue between the cousins. تفضل دكتور.
That's excellent.
بالمناسبة أنا أخوالي من أصول كيف يونانية، هم على الجيم 2 هم كانوا في لبنان في طرابلس، ولكن أصولهم من اليونان على الجيم 2 بالمناسبة.
تمام.
نعم.
شكرا. We have Ibrahim who's up the big mustache as you see it. His uncles from the mother side, they are originally from Greece and they are from the J2 group. And we have an Arab who's still an Arab from Hadramaut. He is J2, Dr. Ibrahim also. تفضل أخوي إبراهيم.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Hi Hunter, how are you doing?
وعليكم السلام.
Salam alaikum. Walaikum assalamu.
This is Saleh from J2BM 205.
Saleh, yes, my cousin.
How are you? How's everything? Good?
Very good, very good.
So
Thank
glad having you with us today.
Nice to talk to you and hear your voice.
Thank you. Hunter, and your work has contributed a lot in the YDNA world, and people benefit from your work. And this was an example from our friend, Brother Abdullah. So I'm wondering what would be your future work and what can we expect from you, Hunter?
I'm working. I'm working right now on mostly my own lineage, but that's just on a voluntary basis because it's my hobby of my own lineage. But I've become more interested in my J2B lineages, such as yours, that are found in Arabian Peninsula and also on Socotra, which is kind of cool. I'm interested in advancing the research into the ancient origins of J2B M205 and what you can expect to see. I'll be honest. I haven't really made many future plans. I have some tests that I've ordered and I wait for the results. But I can. One thing I can talk about. I have looked at the STRs from Weifel tree, and one feature that Weifel does that I think very few people know about is that Weifel computes the haplotype of every haplogroup. That means the STRs that they believe that the common ancestor had. And what we can learn from this is different STRs have a different mutation rate. This is just for STR Match Finder. This means some STR is considered more reliable, lower mutation rate than another. But when an STR has a particular allele, if that allele is higher, it's more unstable. When that allele is lower, it's more stable. I don't think that anyone has really calculated this before on a large amount of data, because scientists that may have been interested in this in the past didn't have a large amount of data. But the Weifel tree is a huge amount of data, and they've computed haplotypes, and they have age estimates of every branch. So I've already done this work. I already wrote the code a few weeks ago, and I have estimates of a mutation rate of every STR based on the allele. And it's a very strong correlation, positive correlation. The higher the allele, the higher mutation rate. This is something that was generally known or assumed, but I actually have computed figures for this. This doesn't like advance research in any particular region like instantly, but it will help with the reliability of STR Match Finder, using STR Match Finder to determine who is likely to be somebody's relative. That's all that does.
Sounds great. And
I am interested to help understand J2B M205. We have the oldest sample from Jordan. We have the oldest sample from Ain Ghazal, Jordan.
Right.
But yet we have a lot of diversity dating to Bronze Age lineages. Many of them are in Yemen and Oman, and one went to Socotra, and we have a lot of people in Iraq. And I think that J2B M205 is one of the most interesting J2B riddles that we would be interesting to learn. Where did that one guy really live 6,000 or 7,000 years ago?
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And really, you have helped us a lot in understanding our haplogroup branch, and we hope to continue our cooperation together. And
you're welcome.
If you
you're welcome.
Thank you.
And I can take this opportunity to tell everyone here, I advance research of the J2B lineages in my free time as my hobby for free. But if somebody wants my assistance to advance their research goals, and this could be one of the things I'm good at, is using STR Match Finder to find someone based on the STRs, people that did a STR test but did not do the expensive test. You may have some relative of some guy that you're interested in, who maybe you're interested in him because he's from a different place, or it's a very rare lineage, and you just want to find who could this guy's closest relative be. Maybe there is information in the STRs that you just didn't know how to see, and the family tree DNA STR matching is not going to show it, because it doesn't show any relationship more than 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. You may be interested in a deeper relationship because it's just such a rare line that the only relative you have is from 2,000 years ago. STR Match Finder is a good tool to use, and I have a lot of experience using it. I can help people. I can help you advance research goals. I charge $50 per hour, and if anybody is interested to ask me, like, they can, in the email you can say what you want, and I can tell you if I know how to do that, and then I can give an estimate of what I think that would cost. And now, all this being said, I'm not an expert on the different tribes of Saudi Arabia and Arab world in general, and Middle East in general. But my expertise is just the DNA part, and then just I can explain why I would think that origin is more likely based on circumstantial evidence. Something good about me is, if you take my opinion, I don't have some motive for believing one tribe is better than another, or that the deeper origin should be this tribe or should be the other. So it's like I'm kind of a clean slate. Like I would be like objective, like in the same way. You know what I'm saying?
Like
sorry,
Switzerland, like Switzerland.
Exactly. It's kind of the same thing, because in my haplogroup, we have a lot of diversity in the Balkans from the Bronze Age. But today, the Balkans, there's a lot of people that don't like each other because of nationalism, and whatever, different religions, different history, wars. But I'm not from the Balkans, so I don't have this. I don't pick one side versus the other, and so people can look at me and say, okay, well, he's not, you know, he's not an Albanian nationalist. He's just a guy that wants to know where his ancestors came from.
Yeah, you're not biased. Yes, you're right.
Right, right. Or I really try not to be.
اخوي صالح، دكتور صالح، لو ترجم الكلام اللي دار بينكم.
والله كلام كثير يا ابو محمد. طيب
اللي تتذكر منه عشان الشباب كانوا يسمعون.
Okay, انا هنتر, let me start with the last part which is the most important, the service provider. ذكر الباحث هنتر انه يقدم بعض الخدمات عن طريق مراسلته، اما بالايميل او عن طريق الموقع اللي فيه الهيت ماب. ممكن تشوف تحت يعني في اخر الصفحه انه هو الكونتاكت مي، وترسل وتواصل معنا وترسل له نوع البحث او الخدمه المعينه اللي ممكن يقدم لك اياها. ممكن يعمل تقرير معين عن الهابل جروب اللي انت مثلا مهتم فيه، اي في اي سلاله، ويعطيك تقرير مثلا عن كل ما هو متواجد حول الهابل جروب او السلاله او التحور، وكل ما هو منشور عنه من ناحيه الرفات وكذلك الهجرات، بدون الدخول في موضوع القبلي أو الانتماءات الأخرى. ينظر لها من ناحية جينية بحتة، وهو يتقاضى تقريبا في الساعة، يذكر أنها $50 أو حسب ما يتم الاتفاق معه. فهذا الجزء يعني من الأخير اللي ذكره. أنا في البداية كنت رحبت فيه لأنه هو ينتمي للJ2B2 وأنا للJ2B1، فكان بيننا تواصل سابق في بداية دخولي لهذا المجال واستفدت منه كثيرا. ف يعني كنت سألته إنه الأشياء اللي قدمها للعلم، هو طبعا هذا من وقته الخاص، أفادت كثير يعني المهتمين في هذا المجال. وسألته عن ما هو القادم يعني من التولز أو الأدوات اللي راح ممكن إنه يتحفنا فيها في المستقبل القريب أو البعيد. ذكر إنه في أشياء شغال فيها، سواء المقالات اللي بينزلها في الصفحة تبعه، وكذلك بعض ذكر خاصية في الوايفل، إنه كيف ممكن يستفيد من STR الداخلي موجود في الوايفل اللي هي الماركرات، ويستخدمها في STR Matching tools اللي موجود عنده. فذكر فيها أشياء تقنية معينة أنا ما استوعبتها. إذا محمد تحب أنك تفسرها تفضل. بعد كذا تكلم عن الاهتمامات الأخرى، سواء في الJ2B عموما وتواجده، لأنه مؤخرا هو أصدر مقالة عن التواجد السقطري للJ2B M205، وذكر أنه مهتم الآن بالM205 من بصفة خاصة، وتواجده في جنوب الجزيرة العربية ووين ممكن يكون نشأ. وذكر بعض الرفات الموجودة في شمال أيضا الجزيرة العربية، فهي أحد اهتماماته. هذا بالعموم ما ذكره. هو شخص حقيقة متعاون جدا، فأيضا ممكن أنك تشارك في صفحته. أنا حقيقة أحد المشاركين في صفحته، يمكن هو حتى ما يدري. والصفحة هذه تسوي له زي التبرع الشهري تقريبا، مبلغ زهيد يعني، يتكلم على $6 في الشهر حسب نوع الاشتراك اللي معاه. فهذا يساعده أيضا على تطوير الأدوات اللي موجودة، وكذلك يقوم يعني عمل أدوات أخرى مستحدثة جديدة يستفيد منها الباحثون. هذا مجمل ما دار بيننا، والله أعلم.
جزاك الله خير، ما قصرت أخوي صالح. حنا عندنا 10 دقائق ربع ساعة إن شاء الله وبنختم. إذا في أحد عنده سؤال أخير يتفضل. I have a question from somebody who sent it to us. He says, I have a question for Mr. Proven. What's the difference between STR matches versus SNP matches?
Okay. General answer is that a SNP, the type of mutation that is a SNP, it's not a mutation that you can undo very easily. So if you are positive for the same SNP as someone else, it's almost 100% chance that you must descend from the same ancestor that defines this branching point by that SNP. You must be descended from the same ancestor. How closely you're related to him, it could be between 0 and years ago, and however many years ago the age of that branching point defined by that SNP. STR match, it's not as reliable as a SNP match, because especially with J1, I know not everyone here is J1, but J1 is a lineage that has so many men whose STRs sort of by chance became the same because there were so many of them, and they're not really closely related to each other. And this kind of thing happens also with R1b, because there's so many men that are different branches of R1b that sometimes you have some STR match, but they're really not closely related to you. They just by chance will have some STRs matching yours. So, okay, very short answer to the question is, an STR match is not guaranteed to be your close relative, especially if you are from a prolific Bronze Age line like some branches of J2. I'm sorry, J1. Like some branches of J1 or some R1b in Europe. SNP matches are guaranteed you're definitely related below whatever SNP. Okay, that's it. That's the short answer.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
كان جاني سؤال من أحد المتابعين يقول ما هو الفرق بين متشابهين اللي على مستوى العلامات الجينية STR Matches واللي على مستوى التحورات. طبعا إجابته كانت أنه على مستوى التحورات دقيق جدا، ولا تستطيع أنه يعني تلغي تحور طلع لأي شخص. يعني إذا طلع الشخص على تحور معين فحتما هذه نتيجته بنسبة 100%، وهو يتقابل مع الشخص الآخر بنسبة 100%. بينما STR Matches هي أقل دقة، ويوجد مشكلة على مستوى J1 وعلى مستوى R1b. طبعا اللي على مستوى J1 قد يكون تعرفونها كلكم لأنه موجود، يعني لما تجي تحت 1600 FGC 1695 هذا
حاطها من 3000 سنة من البرونز ايج.
يعني أنا أتكلم عن اللي أتذكره الحين، لكنه هو فعلا عمره 3000 سنة تقريبا.
قال لا قال 3000 سنة مشكلتهم إنهم كثيري الأعداد، ومن 3000 سنة توهمك إن هذولا نفس التحور، وهو غير صحيح.
نعم، فيعني عندنا المشكلة على FGC 1695 اللي هو برضه ينطبق على الزمن اللي ذكره. وكما تعلمون يعني غالبية المواريث العربية خرجت تحت 1695. طبعا يوجد تحورات أعلى، ولكن نسبتها حسب العينات ضئيلة يعني. والR1b نفس الشيء، وأعتقد أيضا مشكلة الR1b ما هي بعيدة، لأنه حصل انفجار سكاني عندنا على مستوى 1695 وتحت، والR1b أيضا عندهم انفجار سكاني وانتشروا في أوروبا في زمن قصير يعني جدا. قد يكون هذا. ما أدري إذا في أحد عنده سؤال إضافي قبل ما نقفل.
I have a question. I have a question. Mr. Hunter, this is a general DNA question. People agree, I think most of the people maybe in this space agree in the close relation, DNA is 100%. There is no doubt. If I want to know my uncle or my grandfather, definitely will give me the answer. But what about 1500 years ago or 2000 years ago? Is the relation is definite? If for example, we know that marker represents that person, is the relation still as strong as when you relate to your uncle or father? I am talking about confidence and certainty wise.
Well, if this guy from 2000 years ago, or if someone related to you from 2000 years ago, if this relationship is based on a SNP, then it is reliable, because SNPs are, it's like lightning striking one location of your 23 million long DNA Y chromosome, and it's if you have the same SNP, and it's not just one SNP, but all the SNPs before that SNP that define that branching point. If you have all those in common with another guy, even if he's 2,000 years, even if it's 2,000 years ago branch, it's reliable. It's reliable that you must be related to him within that amount of time. Now, what is unreliable is exactly how many years ago your common ancestor with him lived. That's not reliable. That's not reliable. It has to be estimated. Our neighbors told me I'm too loud. Sorry. I'm sitting outside in our yard.
I have to translate this because important.
Sure.
أنا سألته سؤال قلت له أغلب الناس الموجودين في هذه المساحة مقتنعين إنه الحمض النووي في حالة الغرابات القريبة، مثلا أريد أن أجد عمي أو جدي، هذا الكلام لا شك فيه وكل الناس مقتنعين، ولكن هنالك بعض الناس رغم أنهم يدخلوا في الساحات لكن هم يشككوا في أنه لا يمكن أن تجد علاقتك مع شخص قبل 2000 عام ولا قبل 1500 عام. قال لا يوجد فرق ما دام انك هذه العلاقه مرتبطه بالفحص بتاع الاس ام بيز اللي هو السنيب زي ما بيقولوا عليه، او التحورات، ما الماركرات، التحورات. فقال هذه العلاقه لا شك فيها. قال يعني وتعتبر علاقه قويه، يعني فيها ثقه تامه. الحته الوحيده اللي هو العمر هو التقدير، يعني 2000 عام دي ممكن تكون 1800، ممكن تكون 2200 وكذا، يعني العمر هو التقديري، لكن العلاقة لا شك فيها ما دام في ارتباط مع آخرين يثبت هذه العلاقة. فإذا العلم لا شك فيه، ولكن تصبح الأدوات وكيفية فهمك لها وتقدير العمر. شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا مهندس بدران. أخوي نايف تفضل، حياك الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. زاد فضلك، مساكم الله بالخير جميعا.
مساك الله بالنور.
في مساحات سابقة كان يعني فيه مناقشات علمية، وكان البعض يعني يعطي مؤشرات أو احتماليات على وجود علاقة بين الماركرات وبين المصاهرات. يعني إذا كان في مصاهرات بين مجموعتين بشريتين يتشابهون ماركريا، بعيدا عن السنبس، احنا نتكلم عن الماركرات. هل في احتمال لهذا الشيء؟ يعني انا ودي اذا يؤكد او ينفي، او يعني يعطينا هامش لاحتماليه هذا الشيء.
اخوي نايف انا بساله ان شاء الله، بس هو ترى يعني تخصصه يعني حاسب آلي وما ادري مدى دقة المعلومة دي، بس بساله السؤال. Excuse me, Mr. Hunter. The question is about the similarity in the STRs sometimes. For example, there is two groups of or two tribes. One of them has a distinguished STR marker. For example, my case, I will tell you my case. In my case, we have a branch from our SNB that went from my area is Hijaz. And from my area, some branch went to Najd area. And those who went to Najd area, they combined with another tribe. And this other tribe they combined with, they have the marker 385, A and B. They be the other tribe, as if they copied their 385 A and B marker, and now they are the same. Although the brothers or cousins of this other tribe still maintain the old STRs for them. But those who combined with this group of people, they took 385 A and B exactly a replica or as a copy and paste from this group of people to this. Is this justifiable, or does it have a meaning, or is it just coincidental?
If I understand what you mentioned, then I think that must have just been a coincidence, because you can only get this from your father, and it's only from one guy. So so I think what you said was after a group of your branch mixed with another tribe, their DYS 385 became the same as the DYS 385 of that tribe.
True.
But by the SNPs, you can tell that they really are more closely related to you.
No, by the SNPs, the group that came from us still they are with us in the SNP, while the other group still maintain their SNP that connects them with their original group.
Right, but the branch, your group's branch that mixed with them, they have the SNP that indicates that they are really originally from your group.
Yes.
Yes, then this case must just be coincidence.
Yes, okay, thank you very much. هذا سؤالك أخوي أبو أحمد، الإجابة عليه أنه يقول في حالة حدوث مثل هذا، وهذا حدث عندنا أنا في تحورنا موجود، يعني شو اسمه العينات اللي عليها بني عمر سبيع عندهم الماركر 385A وB 18-19. اللي حدث انه الفرع اللي على اللي عليه اخونا راجح فهد البوص اللي هو FGC2 على ZS 7095 عندهم ال 385 18-19 بخلاف بنو عمومتهم اللي قريبين منهم، بس انه مش في نفس الحلف اللي هم داخلين فيه، عندهم الماركرات حقتهم مختلفة زي بقية بينما هذا الفرع. فأنا سألته يعني هل هذا له تفسير يعني منطقي أو إذا قال ولا ممكن يكون يعني حدث بالصدفة. هو يقول التفسير المنطقي الوحيد إنه حدث بالصدفة، يعني ما في شيء يعني، وفيما يبدو لي إنه بالنسبة له لن يكون. هذه ممكن يعني اللي يجيب عليها مثلا متخصص في الجينات، ولكن يعني حسب رؤيته وقراءته إنه ما لهم علاقة.
واضح، شكرا جزيلا. ممكن هذه الظاهرة هذه يعني إذا بحثت علميا بشكل مقارن، حتى يعني ما هي كحالة فريدة اللي عندكم، ممكن يكون في لها يعني تفسير آخر.
والله ما أدري عاد، إذا أخونا أبو صالح يحيى العلي يطرح الأمر على عندهم بالشركة، لأنه يعني الشركة متخصصة في الجينات، فقد يكون يعني. بينما الأخ أو المهندس هنتر طبعا هو سوفت وير انجينير، فيعني يعمل زي ما تقول ابلكيشنز انها تفسر او تقرا البيانات هذه وتحاول انه تحولها الى خرائط او ادوات تخمين للتحورات وللجينات. فممكن اخونا
شكرا يا ابو محمد، الله يعطيك العافيه.
العفو. ما ادري في احد عنده سؤال؟ نرحب اخونا عبد الله بن عاصي، ما ادري اذا عندك سؤال اطلب المايك لانه احنا على وشك نختم، فاذا في شيء تبي تسال اخوي ابو فيصل تفضل.
ممكن أسأل هنتر, I have a question. Do you have any collaboration with Chinese Y3, or do you have an idea about this?
I have not. I haven't done any collaboration with them, and in the beginning, I was skeptical of the accuracy of their tree because I think if someone writes them an email and tells them I am in this branch, and then they just add the branch to the tree, and they don't actually require some genetic test result. But I see that they are active in adding new branches to the tree. I think they just copied the Y-fold tree to begin with, and now they're adding more samples. But I can't really say very much about it because I just don't use it.
Thank you. سألته عن الشركة الصينية وقال هو في الأول ما كان بيثق فيها، لأنه الشخص بيرسل لهم العينة بيقول لهم أنا مثلا على الفرع BY2 بخطوا في BY2 دون يعني لأنهم بس نسخوا المشجرة بتاعت الوايفول، لكن هو قال ليس لديه معلومات كثيرة عنهم الآن، يعني شايفهم أصبحوا نشيطين أكثر يعني. تفضل الأخ عبد الله.
السلام عليكم، الله يمسيكم بكل خير ومحبة. تحية وتقدير لك أخي عبد الله، الله يحفظك. أنا حقيقة كنا في مساحة عند الأخ نايف بن حمود مع الدكتور عبد الرحمن السليمان، تمنيت أني والله معاكم من البداية لأن يهمني الموضوع هذا الحقيقة. والله يحفظكم. والله آسف إني جاي متأخر يعني في الموضوع، لكن إن شاء الله في الأيام القادمة. تحية وتقدير لكم جميعا يا أخواني. شكرا.
جزاك الله خير أخوي أبو فيصل. المساحة مسجلة على كل، ويعني ممكن تطلع على اللي فاتك منها بإذن الله.
اي والله يا ليت ابو عابد تنشر لنا بالله تسجيل للمساحه نشوف ايش صار فيها يا اخوك.
باذن الله نحولها بعد على اليوتيوب، بس حاليا موجوده في يعني نفس التغريده. بعد ما المساحه هذه بعد ما تنتهي بتلقاها مسجله، تقدر تدخل عليها. وانا على بال ما اسجلها يمكن كم يوم باذن الله احولها في اليوتيوب. برضو يعني نرحب باخونا ابو صالح بعد عودته. كان في سؤال ما ادري سمعته اخوي ابو صالح اللي كان يتعلق بالتشابه بعض الماركرات، يعني ولا يعني عندك شيء تعليق فيه ولا؟
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا سامحوني يا إخوان، والله إني في الدوام، لذلك أدخل وأرجع وكذا، فسامحوني ما استطعت إني أكون معكم باستمرار. وهنتر هو يعني قريب. الأخ نايف سؤاله جميل طبعا. هو يعني أفضل من يجيب على هذا السؤال هو توماس كران، لكن أنا بعطي اللي أعرفه الآن. أنا بالنسبة للماركرات والتحورات، أنا مسوي تغريدة، إذا بتشوفوها آخر تغريدة سويت لها إعادة. يعني إيش الفرق بين الماركر وبين التحور؟ التحور هو أصلا طفرة. الطفرة هي يعني الشريط الجيني عبارة عن قواعد جينية مرتبطة في بعض بترتيب معين، تي سي اي وكذا بترتيب معين، وكل ما كانت القرابة أكبر مع شخص يعني مع شخص معين، كل ما كان التشابه أكبر في هذا الترتيب. كل ما كانت القرابة أبعد، كل ما كان الترتيب هذا مختلف. طبعا التحورات إيش هي؟ التحورات هي عبارة عن طفرات، يعني هي طفرات جينية. والطفرة إيش هي أصلا؟ الطفرة هي تبدل في أحد القواعد، يعني تصير بدل ما تكون سي تصير تي مثلا، بدل ما تكون تي تصير اي أو كذا. فالطفرة أكيدة مؤكد خلاص انقلبت، يعني عنده القاعدة تغيرت إلى تي أو سي، فهذا شيء مؤكد أنه موجب لتحور معين، هذا شيء مؤكد مليون في المية، خلاص انتهى. بالنسبة للماركرات، الماركر هي تكرار معين في الشريط الجيني لهذه القواعد. مثلا نقول سي تي، مثلا قاعدة سي تي اي، نقول مثلا سي تي اي، هذه القواعد تكررت في منطقة معينة في الشريط الجيني 5 مرات، أو نقول 12 مرة، تكررت 12 مرة في موقع معين في الشريط الجيني، مسمينها مثلا دي واي اس 3، دي واي اس او ديس 388 مثلا. فهذا الديس 388 هو عباره عن تكرار معين او عدد التكرارات لقواعد معينه في الشريط الجيني في موقع معين، صح؟ تكررت، وهذه تختلف من شخص لاخر. فسؤال الاخ نايف هو سؤال وجيه جدا. اذا كان مثلا التزاوج من جهه الام مثلا يؤثر على هذه التكرارات، انا حقيقه ماني المختص جدا واتفلسف عليكم الحين في هذا الجانب، لذلك يعني بحاول، يعني انا بسجل السؤال هذا وبخلي توماس كران يجيب عليه، واجيب عليه ان شاء الله في تغريده، او ارسل للاخ نايف او لك اخوي عبد الله، ان شاء الله انتم تنشروا لهم. لكن انا اللي اعرفه انه الماركرات ما لها ذاك التاثير الكبير عبر التزاوج، يعني من جهه الام ما تاثر. لانه انتم ملاحظين ذا الحين انه حتى التحورات اليوم مثلا نقول اف جي سي 1695 في بصمه ماركريه معينه تدل، يعني انتم القديمين تشوفوا مجرد ما تشوفوا الماركرات تعرف ان الشخص هذا تحت الاف جي سي 1695 او مرجح عليه بقوه. ليش؟ لانه هذه هي ماركراتهم، هذه هي ماركراتهم. لذلك انا باخذ السؤال هذا ان شاء الله، واسال توماس كران ان شاء الله غدا، وارسل لكم الاجابه باذن الله تعالى. وسامحوني يا اخوان والله اني منشغل، ولا المساحه جميله، وانا سامحوني يعني اني شو اسمه من ناحيه مقصر، وقد ربما ان حتى الاجابه يعني ما تكون كافيه لكم. شكرا لكم.
لا بالعكس، جزاك الله خير، ما قصرت ومعانا قلبا وقالبا. نشكرك. Mr. Hunter, we reached to the conclusion of our space.
Okay.
If you have a final word, and of course we thank you very much for the time you have given to us and the knowledge that you shared with us, that everybody benefited from. And we hope in the future that we have another space with you hopefully when there is something new, we'll try to host you with us if your time permits. And now, if you have a final word, please do.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for the invitation to talk with you and answer your questions. And like I said earlier, it's an honor for me. I've never spoken to so many people at the same time to talk about haplogroup research and the tools that I've done. And so this was really a great opportunity for me. And yeah, I'm happy to continue to. I'm happy to have found that this is my field. I feel like I'm lucky that I've found that this is what I like to do, because I've always been interested in history, and yeah, I'm happy to make these tools, and let's do this again sometime.
Thank you very much. في نهاية المساحة شكرنا المهندس هنتر بروفن لقدومه معنا في هذه المساحة ومشاركته للمعلومات، وطلبنا منه أنه إذا أصبح في تحديث أو برامج جديدة أنه يشاركنا في المستقبل، ووعدنا بذلك، وقال هذه أول مرة له يتكلم مع عدد كبير من الناس، وهو يسعد بأنه يشارك هذه المعلومات، وبأنه مهتم بالتاريخ ولذلك يبحث في هذا الجانب، وبإذن الله يكون لنا لقاء معه في المستقبل. وفي نهاية المساحة نقول سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك، أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. ونشكر جميع اللي شاركوا معنا، وعلى رأسهم المهندس بدران والمهندس يحيى العلي وأبو إبراهيم وأخونا عبد الله بن عاصي وجميع من حضر، وشكرا لكم ومع السلامة.
Thank you. I would like to say one just last quick thing. The more we learn that we are related to each other from different countries and regions, and even race, the more we learn we are related to each other, I think the better, the more we will have peace in the future, because we will not see each other as different.
Yes, thank you very much. كلمته الختامية يقول إنه إذا يعني علمنا بمدى درجة القرابة فيما بيننا على يعني كبشر، يعني هذا قد يقلل أو يحد من الخلافات أو المشاكل اللي موجودة. ونشكره. thank you very much.
ويحد من العنصرية، من العنصرية، معلش ولو أني أقاطعكم، من العنصرية أخوي.
أنا مع هذا أنا صرت أفوت شوي.
نعم.
جزاك الله خير.
بس احنا ماخذين المشكلة في مجموعة، يعني ماخذ الموضوع كتعصب لموروث معين أو لفرع معين أو لكذا. لا والله أنا أشوف الجانب الأفضل من الجينات إنه قرب البعيد وكذا، عرفت هذا
صحيح. يعني الحين هو المهندس هنتر بروفن قلنا على معاه المهندس الدكتور صالح اللي من حضرموت انهم عيال عم، وحنا بعض المجموعات فيه تقوم في 300-400 سنة، وكل واحد يقول أنا غير وما أدري كيف. فهذه إن شاء الله دعوة للجميع أنه يعني يكون العلم هذا أداة لفهم يعني الهجرات البشرية ومدى تواصل صلات البعض مع بعضهم، ولا تكون أداة للتفريق، بل هي أداة للنظر للماضي وللتاريخ وفهم الحكمة. يعني الحكمة هي يعني ضالة المؤمن، أن وجدها فهو أحق بها. يعني والحكمة هي في انتقال البشر وتداخلهم فيما بينهم، وفهم ذلك يعني دليل يعني على توسع الأفق والتقليل من ضيق الأفق والانطوائية على والاعتقاد بأن المكون اللي هو عليه أهم من غيره. المكونات الموجودة هو يكاد يكون نقطة في بحر من هذه المكونات، فعند قبول ذلك وفهمه يعني قد يكون يعني مقدمة للتسامح فيما بيننا، والفهم أنه ما في أحد أحسن من حد، يعني وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا، وهذه قمة الحكمة. Thank you very much Mr. Hunter, and we hope to see you soon. ونشكركم جميعا.
Okay, thank you.
ومع السلامة، تصبحون على خير.
Thank you very much.